Voir si mon PC a la capacité de enregistrer en même temps.
Et oui.
Et merci pour ton follow.
Souche.
J'espère qu'ils vont passer un peu sur le blabla de la com et qu'ils vont vraiment nous montrer des vrais trucs.
C'est là qu'ils vont nous dire pour les, tu sais, pour le délire des serveurs et des sous-serveurs là.
Je crois pas. Ils ont dit qu'ils mettraient pas de liste. A priori. Parce qu'ils veulent... En fait, c'est à la demande. Ils veulent mettre plus de serveurs au fur et à mesure qu'il y a plus de joueurs qui se connectent sur le jeu. Et du coup, il n'y a pas de liste.
Ok.
Donc ça va être un problème. Pour beaucoup de gens. Peut-être que là, ils vont nous dire dans le live qu'ils sont revenus sur leur décision, je sais pas.
En espérant que ce soit pas trop le bordel pour se retrouver sur le même serveur quoi.
Aussi.
Bah, c'est ça le problème, effectivement. Bon, je traduirai que les trucs essentiels, hein. Je vais pas faire toutes les phrases.
T'as lancé ton live là?
Ouais.
Merde, je te vois pas.
Non, j'ai pas lancé. Normalement, si.
Si, moi je suis dessus.
Ici, moi je te vois.
Je vais refresh la page.
Si t'es en live.
Il y a
Ouais, c'est
juste
bon.
2 secondes d'écart. Là.
Alors, si je me trompe pas, ils ont dit qu'ils allaient parler d'abord du mid-game PvE et ensuite de l'endgame. Moi, j'imagine qu'ils vont parler d'autres choses aussi, de PvP, des questions que se posent les gens, des serveurs, des trucs comme ça. Je sais pas si je lâche le chat. Non, je vais mettre en grand.
Ah ouais. Antigua fait ça aussi.
Une minute. Ce qui serait pas mal, c'est qu'ils nous montrent des trailers qu'on n'a pas vus aussi. Et merci aux X. Ton follow.
Tiens, regarde.
Merci pour le sub. C'est toi, Chaud, qui a sub là?
Ouais.
Merci.
Ah, faut bien que ça serve, il sert à rien depuis des mois, alors écoute. Autant
Ah
que ça
bah.
serve à quelqu'un.
Bah, c'est gentil. Yo, Regina.
Few survive this world. But those who do awaken. The desert wants you dead, off-worlder. If the sands don't take you, the storms will swallow you whole. But you don't have to walk this path.
Non, c'est un stream des devs, Regina.
In
Ils vont
every
parler du jeu.
danger, there is opportunity. The foundation of something greater. A power waiting to be harnessed.
Merci pour le sub.
Desert
Panda.
power. Some claim to rule this planet. But Arrakis is yours to explore. To fight for. To conquer.
Bon, tout ça jusqu'ici, on l'a déjà vu.
But there are forces beyond even your control. Master Arrakis, and it will open your mind. This is your path to awakening.
Ils ont dit aussi que ils allaient enlever les tanks qu'on a vus dans certains trailers.
Hello everybody to our, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, last developer live stream before our head start and the full launch of Dune Awakening. I'm Natasha Rösli, I have the honor to be your host for today, and I think I'm not the only one when I say I'm so excited for you to experience what our teams have been working on
Et alors,
for
elle
the
a
past
dit
years. So,
incroyable, c'est le dernier
have
stream des
gotten a taste of
devs.
what the game
Trop
feels
content que ça
and looks
sorte.
like during the beta weekend. But today we go beyond the beta and show you a glimpse of mid and end game of Dune Awakening. We have first
On va vous
a
montrer
little
des trucs du
segment where we
mid-game et
talk
l'end-game.
beta and combat. We then have live gameplay of Haga Basin and also social hubs. We go into live gameplay of the Deep Desert. And as always, we have a Q&A in the end, where we'll be connecting questions from you, from chat, live during the stream.
Ils vont d'abord nous parler de la
Before
bêta
we
et des
dive
combats.
into all of that,
Ensuite, ils vont
let's
jouer.
watch a brand new
Social
video.
Hub, on va voir plus Saga Basing. Ensuite, le Deep Desert. Et ensuite, une FAQ avec les gens du chat. Yo, 0B.
Combat in Dune Awakening is the fusion of melee, shields, ranged, abilities, and vehicles. As you progress, your tactical options expand, allowing you to express yourself through different styles of play.
Ça donne envie, hein, le petit lance-roquette comme ça.
In the beginning, combat is a short, brutal affair. Do everything you can to knock your opponents off balance and open them up for a retaliating strike. Keep an eye on your stamina, or find yourself in trouble. Early abilities change the paradigm. Use the voice to force your enemies to come to you. Shigawire Claw to stagger an enemy. Knee charge into melee range.
T'es là, Ozix? Tu veux que je traduise la voix off là des cinématiques
Ranged
ou pas?
weapons like the Mauler pistol allow you to maintain distance and take down enemies from afar until a shielded enemy enters the fray. Holtzman shields change the nature of combat.
Ça a l'air moins mou qu'avant, non?
Barrier can
Vous trouvez pas?
only be pierced by slow-moving
Bah,
objects. Fast on defense,
on dirait, mais bon, c'est une mise en
Technologie
scène.
on attack.
Ouais.
Swords, daggers,
Peut-être, hein, après.
kinjals, and rapiers are effective for dealing with shielded enemies. But without a shield of your own, you will quickly be overwhelmed by enemy fire.
Après, on l'a jamais vu cette cinématique, j'ai
But the
l'impression.
shields also have a weakness beyond the slow blade. Ranged attacks cannot be fired from inside an active shield, creating a window of opportunity for the others to exploit. Specialized range weapons can counteract shields. The drill shot rifle fires drilling darts that will attach to a shield and slowly pass through.
Ok, alors ça c'est intéressant. Il dit qu'il y a des armes spéciales pour passer à travers le
Fires
bouclier.
statically charged darts at variable speeds to overwhelm the power supply
Ouais,
of the
c'est
shield.
Il n'y a pas que la SMG. Il y a un espèce de...
Can turn the tide of any battle. Swordmasters use their deflection ability to close the distance and bring their crippling strikes to bear on their enemies.
Là, il nous montre les compétences à
Troopers
l'épée.
use their techniques to take to the air and bring death from above. Bene Gesserit stop enemies in their tracks with the power of the voice, or use their Bindu dash to quickly close the gap. Mentats control the battlefield with their sentinel, or use the Hunter Seeker for a silent takedown.
Bon, ils nous ont fait un résumé d'un peu toutes les compétences en fait.
Abilities, ranged weapons, shields and melee work in concert to allow mastery. But beyond mastery lies the spice. Consume it to awaken. Transcend human limits with new abilities and prescience, seeing what others cannot, the narrow path to victory. Combine these techniques freely to experience sandbox combat, create unique strategies, and bring them to bear against your foes. Always remember, Arrakis takes
Donc là,
the weak.
ils ont redit ce que je disais hier, c'est qu'il a dit le combat à distance et le mêlée, il faut les combiner pour atteindre la maîtrise. Mais vous avez aussi les pistes, et en combinant la stratégie, les compétences, etc. Va y avoir moyen de faire plein de trucs différents.
And we are back and diving straight into our first segment, showing you mid-game in the Haga Basin towards endgame as well. But first, let's of course introduce our guests for today.
Ouais.
Here on this side, we did let him out of the
Ça commence à
doghouse.
peine,
We have Joel Bylos, aka Chris Knife, our creative director. Joel, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi everybody. My name is, I have to admit it, Joel Bylos this time. So because this is the last live stream, I'm going to admit that my name is Joel.
Love it.
It's fine. And yep, looking forward to talking about everything we're going to talk about today.
Yes, and on this side we have Scott Junior, our executive producer on the game, new face.
Yeah.
Un creative director, tu parles de Joel? Non, c'est plus,
But yeah, it's good to see.
Bah, en tout cas, sur les trailers, enfin, toutes les vidéos que j'avais vues, le mec au milieu, c'est le mec qui parle du lore du jeu et l'autre du créatif, quoi.
Ouais, mais c'est plus qu'on sait creative director. C'est pas que le lore.
Let's say not a small taste, but a taste of the game, the survival aspect of the game. Maybe we can have an infographic where we actually see what the players in the beta were able to experience. Here we have
Là, jusqu'ici, ils faisaient juste des blagues par rapport au stream d'avant.
What was the most valuable takeaway from this beta?
I think getting the game in so many people's hands.
Ça, c'est les stats qu'ils nous ont envoyés par mail.
When we started working on Dune, we wanted to make more than just a normal survival game. We wanted to make a very Dune game.
On voulait faire un jeu plus qu'un survival normal, mais un jeu Dune.
Right, what we were doing, because we were taking a lot of risks trying to do some new takes on things to make them more Dune than survival.
Des trucs plus.
So we have a lot of people finally being able to play the game and understand, what we're trying to do. So that was great. And then seeing the feedback and the reactions and all the social media posts, all the YouTube videos.
Mais de voir toutes les réactions dans la bêta, les vidéos et tout, c'était stylé.
My personal takeaways is that we had a couple technical issues that we were able to sort out and get fixed pretty quickly.
Son avis personnel, c'est qu'ils ont eu des problèmes techniques, mais qu'ils ont réparé.
Yeah, some crashes and freezes that we've already fixed. So I'm really excited to get the game out next week.
Des crashs et autres qui vont être
Anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, for me, it's just a lot of fun to watch people finally playing. Like, someone asked me on Discord like a year ago, like, tell us about the game. They wanted me to describe the game. They weren't in the beta, and I was like, well, it's very hard to describe because it's something unique. Yes, it has some familiar survival stuff, but we've layered it all underneath the Dune IP, and it's really hard to describe how all of those things come together to create something that I feel is kind of unique and interesting, right? And so, yeah, I think it was fun for people to really get their hands on it. I mean, we've been talking with the closed beta players for a while, but seeing people in the world having it, streaming it, putting up YouTube videos, talking about what they were experiencing, I think, importantly, people finding out whether they like or dislike the game as well, because I really like people to be able to make an informed choice about what they're buying as well. So
c'est cool que les gens aient pu trouver avec la bêta ce qu'ils aiment pas dans le
jeu. Well is like for me having a little bit more of a bird's eye view of how the developers and the teams were reacting to this, because me too, we have been
so
close to the game
elle dit c'est bien d'avoir les développeurs qui réactent à tout ça
anymore, like from a normal gamer perspective, and then seeing all those amazing kind of obviously there was feedback as well that we kind of needed to address and things. More on that in a second. But it was just so fun to see how everyone kind of was like, no, we have something here. Like people are enjoying it and they're getting it and they're like having fun playing the game. And that was really great to see from that perspective as well, like just overall.
In the moments like people almost getting eaten by the sandworm, right? Those are very tense moments that happen in the game.
Bon, là, ils parlent qu'ils sont contents d'avoir vu les gens jouer dans la bêta.
There was one thing I really enjoyed was also like watching people coming in. I don't want to say skeptics, but they kind of, as they hit the beats of the game, as they progress through the game, in the beginning they're like, okay, this is this and this is this, and they kind of, and then like they're like, wait, you can combine the suspensor belt and the Shiga-wire claw, and you can, oh wait, you can do these things? Oh cool, I got and suddenly the game, like it's opening up more and more, and they're really starting to understand the philosophy of how we approach the development with the sandbox, right? So I don't know, as I saw people experience, I was just like, oh god, people they're seeing it and doing it. It's
they
great.
Get it. They have those light bulb moments that you were hoping for, right?
Yeah, and they just were growing more positive as they played more, right? And that to me is huge. It's really important.
Yeah. And it's, as I mentioned, that are the things that are really great to see from kind of an outside perspective as well.
And it was good, it's the first slide was showing this, right? It's just the first 20 hours, so it's just a taste of the game, right? It's just the very beginning of Act 1. We have so much more to show, and the best parts are here to come.
The rest, quite a bit, like a little bit of the stream as well. But going back to the beta weekend, there were, of course, some things that weren't that great, that didn't go as planned. One of those moments was, of course, the PvP moment in the broadcast. And when it comes
Elle dit pendant le live là des streamers, il y a eu un problème avec le combat.
worked on this and addressed it.
Ils vont en parler, ils ont travaillé dessus.
Yeah, so we were aware of this issue. We've been in closed beta for
On savait qu'il y avait ce problème.
Almost now, right? The new combat came in August of last year.
Yep.
And we've been making tweaks based on feedback and playtests that we've been doing.
Et on a fait des petits ajustements sur
going
les
into the
feedbacks
beta,
des
we
gens.
knew that there was that issue around stamina and what would happen if it ran out, and we'd already been working on it for over a month to try to fix it.
Et ça faisait un mois qu'ils travaillaient dessus pour le
we
réparer.
patched out a change to it. Do you want to go over the details of that?
Du coup, ils
I
ont
mean,
fait un patch.
the high-level changes it's something like this now, right? So heavy and slow blade have been separated as attacks. So a heavy staggers people now, and then a slow blade finishes them off, like it goes into the slow blade attack. So you actually, now holding the button, you'll actually do a heavy attack. All attacks have now got proper stamina costs attached to them. And then in addition, if you're in a place where you're getting into the stun lock situation, you get an ability which is called Second Wind. It just pops on. It starts to restore your stamina bar quickly so you can dodge out of any sort of stun lock in that situation. So yeah, we've been doing balance around stamina costing on everything. We've been doing balance around the way, attacks work. I think it's all working pretty well. Scott and I did a fair bit of PvP ourselves.
En gros, maintenant, pour patch toutes les attaques ou de la stamina, et quand tu te retrouves stunlock, tu gagnes second wind,
on the
et ça
second day,
recharge
I
ta barre de
slotted the
stamina,
Bene
du coup tu
Gesserit
peux
technique,
esquiver.
the Mentat technique, which allowed me to avoid his voice power.
Qu'ils ont testé PvP, que ça marchait bien.
It was fun, it's fun to see how the dynamics work, right? So it was a lot of fun.
Mais qui sont en train de l'ajuster parfaitement.
We're still, we put it on the closed beta, we're getting feedback from people and testing. But one thing is important to stress, right? It's a live game, and we're going to continue to patch and update. So we'll be paying a lot of attention to what happens as the game goes live and as people are playing. And, we're here to make the game better. That's our job.
Il dit de toute façon, c'était justement pour tester le jeu. Et même quand le jeu sera sorti, ils vont continuer à ajuster les choses et tout.
À regarder le retour des joueurs. An example of group gameplay. Like that word is just.
Alors du gameplay.
When you said dry examples, I thought you were going to break out the wine. But let's.
Maybe I should. Maybe I would go better. But yes, so we have some group gameplay, mid game actually.
Yeah, mid-ish game.
We can probably just comment on it as well, what we're seeing and how it's different from what people have seen in the beta specifically.
Sure, you want.
Sure, yeah, I can go. So if you played to the Vermilius Gap, the journey is still very isolated to yourself, right, and your sand bike, and you have a small base. As you're moving into the next areas, like the Hugget, or this is the Rift, right? You unlock the buggy, and the great thing about the buggy is it allows you to start mining from your vehicle.
Si vous avez joué à la première, c'est assez solitaire, mais ensuite tu débloques la première zone. Mais ensuite tu débloques le buggy. Et là tu peux jouer en groupe. Grâce à ce buggy et miner directement.
Just moving around, going to the different resources, either switching yourself to the turret, or if you have a friend, having the friend man the mining laser, right? And then
soit tu peux switch toi-même dans la tourelle et miner.
The buggy is a multi-seat vehicle. Right, so when you get to the mid game, it's good to start crafting that, right? And then you can get out there and you can harvest. It has a huge inventory space as well, compared to like the sandbike or what the players can carry. Our philosophy of design with the game, like I've seen people asking for more inventory space on their character, but our philosophy of design for the game was that you build vehicles.
C'est design exprès qu'on n'ait pas beaucoup de place sur le personnage.
And how much volume it can hold. So the buggy
pour
really
que
is like your
aies envie de créer les véhicules,
as
parce que dans le véhicule là,
and
il y a
if you're
vraiment
playing
beaucoup
with
de place.
friends, someone's on the turret, someone's in the driver's seat. You can have a friend in the passenger seat as well. You can bring multiple people.
Et
But you
comme
can
ça, si tu
also
joues en
just
groupe,
like
hop,
do
dans
this
la
alone,
tourelle,
jump
qui
between
conduit.
seats.
Mais tu peux aussi le faire
in the
tout seul.
interaction menu, you just select I want to drive now. I want to sit in the turret seat and mine. But I want to talk a little bit about this location because we're in this place called the Haga
Il veut
Rift.
parler de
And
l'endroit
as
là
you
où
can
ils
see,
sont
it's this dark,
dans la
gloomy.
gameplay.
It's basically a geological ditch. And Herbert talked about this in the book. He talked about the folk of Pan and Graben. And this Graben are these big ditches, these big chasms that you have on Dune, on Arrakis. And in here, it's like the sunlight doesn't really penetrate to the bottom. And down here, there's been this ongoing war of attrition between the Atreides and the Harkonnen over this shipwreck, which is central to this area. And then as you come up out of the Haga Rift, you come back into these other areas of the map, and it's like it's a different style and tone to the desert. And I know people have been concerned, or
le soleil atteint même
been
pas
worried that like everything's one
fond.
biome, but as you go down into the Rift, you feel it's a very different place.
Et c'est cool cet endroit parce qu'il est différent
shout out
de.
to our world director Jeff, like one of his big key points about the world was making sure that we had a lot of verticality. And I think Hagar Rift is like an absolutely perfect example of how you can just keep going down and down through these galleries, and there's bases built up through the entire side. It's just this really fun place to be.
It's like, make it deeper, make it deeper.
Exactly. And this is where all the lights come into play. So headlights on vehicles, personal lights on players come in. At this point, this is where you start bringing things, and yeah, it's fun.
And it's so huge because then you fly in with an ornithopter too. It's like wide and yeah, it's really.
Et c'est bien parce que comme c'est grand, tu peux aussi y aller en hélicoptère.
In the setting, in the atmosphere when you're down, right? You've been in the harsh desert in the Vermeos Gap with like the bright lights on you the entire time, going like from shadow to shadow to preserve water. When you get down there, like the music team's done a very good job of just setting the atmosphere. It feels almost cool.
Il y a une atmosphère cool quand tu vas plus profond grâce à la musique.
So you can see the wreckage of like the wall. You can see that's a deserter base. Like because of the war of attrition that's been happening here, some of the Atreides and Harkonnen have deserted, and they set up little camps around here, and they create like they're obviously hazardous. But now we're coming to a base that we created for
Et là,
this.
Ils vont dans la base que.
And this is the Atreides base building set. Yeah. And this kind of, I think this is this is a great example of what you can do outside of the square blocks that everybody was seeing in beta because they only had access to the first couple of sets.
Non. Yeah, and what's important as you get into the mid-game, you start building up your infrastructure, and that's just as important as your equipment or your vehicles. So even if you lose a vehicle, right, like you make your buggy and you get unlucky enough to get eaten by a sandworm, like the infrastructure will allow you to get back on your feet way quicker than that first.
Can we stop for a second and show a pro tip here? I really want to pro tip something. So, can someone go and use a chest?
Yes.
Il veut montrer un pro tip.
You want to mention my favorite thing?
So if you go to the
Donc si tu vas dans un chest.
Is that a chest? Yeah. Okay. Go to. So if you're in a chest in the game and you have a vehicle anywhere on your land claim, you can go to the top of the inventory on the left there where it says backpack. Where it says backpack on the left-hand side, whoever's driving, up there, and click the drop down, and you can select the vehicle storage. This is a massive quality of life for getting things in and out of your vehicles.
Et il dit c'est super parce que tu peux prendre les trucs directement de ton véhicule.
It's not the easiest thing to find, but once you know about this, it ups your quality of life in the game immensely because you can just drive in with a buggy full of stuff, go into your base, click any chest, click on the storage drop down, and start taking things out of the back of that vehicle.
It's something that the beta test suggested, isn't it? Like directly?
Yes. Yeah. This was something people were asking for during the closed beta, and we implemented it. Yeah.
Another thing that I mentioned before, which is such a small quality of life thing, but we have that too, is you don't have to empty your chest before you can move them.
Oh, exactly.
This is like just a complete mind-blowing quality of life change to me. That's like so nice.
So the game works in these phases of like, in the beginning, you need a sandbike to get off walking around, right? Then you move to the phase where you want a buggy to help you to harvest and gather resources. And then you move to the phase where you want to start building your first ornithopter. And so we have an example of this here. And the vehicle building in the game is very cooperative, right? You can see that these different, we're now adding permissions to allow people to help us to work on this ornithopter.
Alors là, il nous montre comment ils vont build l'ornithoptère et il dit c'est cool parce que tu peux ajouter tes potes et du coup tu peux le build à plusieurs.
Assault ornithopter, as we call it, so it's the medium tier. But the largest ornithopter, the transport ornithopter, also requires
l'ornithoptère du milieu.
a lot of parts and a lot of people. So it's kind of part of the way we designed this was to make sure that we had this collaborative building system in the game, both for buildings and for vehicles.
This is my favorite part of the game, just the building the vehicles actually physically in the world, right? Putting the pieces there, working with your friends to make all the parts of them, and then like mixing and matching the different modules to make the vehicle, fit the role that you want to use the vehicle with for that moment.
Yeah, and vehicles come with different module sets, right? So you can put inventories on some. You can, like we talked about the buggy. You can actually have a rocket turret on top of the buggy, which I think you saw in the combat trailer earlier. You saw the buggy firing rockets. So you can have different types of things on the different vehicles, and we'll continue to expand that post-launch as well, making the vehicles more and more useful with utility.
Sur les véhicules, ils vont continuer à ajouter des trucs.
It's fun, right? And then I guess the other side of this is that we can
il met des roquettes sur les ailes.
We can start talking about variants and swatches, which is our customization system.
He's actually going to change in a second. We'll actually see that. So there we go.
Yeah.
So this
ornithopter.
These guys are aligned with the Atreides.
Ah non, c'est la variante vraiment de visuel.
Here we just switched out the Atreides. And a variant, just to put the distinction in place, a swatch allows you to change the color sets, but a variant allows you to change the physical visual.
So
ok, donc il va y avoir des variantes visuelles vraiment du skin en lui-même. Et des visuels de la couleur, la texture.
And so this is and you earn these variants in this case by leveling up in the factions, which is a part of the mid game.
C'est là par exemple tu la gagnes en montant de level dans la faction.
As you join a faction, go through their quest lines, you earn access to these kind of variants and things like that, and then you're able to use the Atreides colors and swatches and variants.
Yeah, both on vehicles and your armor, right? So
yes.
Et à force de monter dans ta faction, des niveaux et tout, en faisant les quêtes, tu débloques des couleurs que tu peux utiliser sur ton véhicule et sur ton armure.
Around this was as well, like you create, so let's say you create a tier 4, like a mid-tier armor set, and it's like a scout armor. You can variant swap that to look like any other scout armor in the game. You can't turn it into a heavy armor or a combat armor because
et là il dit en gros qu'il y a de la transmo. Tu peux sur toutes les armures légères, tu peux la transmo avec une autre armure légère. Par contre là ils ont des icônes au-dessus de leur personnage.
La transmo était déjà dispo à la bêta.
Ah ouais, j'ai même pas capté comment vous
Ouais, j'avais sur la tenue de survivant, là, celle où t'as l'eau. J'ai pu la transmog en la toute première que j'avais vue.
Ok, mais j'ai pas capté comment ça marchait. Là il dit tu peux passer en mode Vulture là à droite on voit sur Shift.
Et ça
te permet de planer.
It's like a hover mode and a glide mode, right?
Et du coup tu peux si tu n'utilises pas de carburant.
You see that they have a boost module. Actually,
ils ont
this is fun. Like when you get too high in altitude, you start increasing your fuel consumption, which prevents people from going too high in the game. Also good to know for people who want to stay, close to the ground. And now we're flying through an area of the map known as the Shield Wall, which is on the para-northern side of the Haga Basin. We can talk about the para-directions at some point, because that's always awkward and weird. But because para-north is really south in relative terms to the map. But this is these are rocky areas, so the sandworm is less of a threat up here, but the enemies are much harder. And the resources you gather up here are much more,
mais il n'y a pas le vert parce qu'il y a beaucoup de
value,
rochers.
To what you're doing. So these are areas where you harvest.
And the first time you're coming here, you don't actually have an ornithopter. More than likely, you don't, right?
So la première fois que tu viens ici, tu n'auras pas d'ornithopter.
You bring your buggy here, which is really high, really hard to get to, or do you go with your sand bike and try to climb up the wall? So it's ultimately it's about choice, how you go to each of the biomes, and then which vehicles you bring, right? Which enable different mechanics based on the one you want.
Yeah, and like this area we're in now is known as the Uldum as well, and the Uldum has a little more plant growth and a little more greenery, and that's because the Uldum is
an area where
they were doing experiments on some of the land, and we won't talk too much about it, but we're going to fly over. I guess this is
our second base.
This is our second base on the Shield
C'est leur
Wall.
deuxième base qu'ils
this
ont
is
construit.
Guild base. So this is further into the game. People have progressed a bit. They're probably so we divide the game into 4 phases: survive, protect, expand, and control. So this would be
divisé le jeu en 4 phases.
Here you're either on the expand or the control
protéger,
part of the game, the sort of last 2 phases, right? So you've got a bigger guild, you're working with a larger group of people potentially. You can still play the game solo at this point. Everything just takes a little longer and is a little harder.
Tu peux quand même jouer solo, mais c'est plus long.
And that's you can still do it. You can craft these ornithopters. There's no problem. But we encourage people to play together and work together in a multiplayer game.
And we're showing off some building sets we've never shown before.
Yes.
These will be the Twitch drops.
These are Twitch drops.
Exactly.
Ah, là c'est des sets de build Twitch drop.
Ils n'ont jamais montré. Building set, but those round windows and the ceiling pieces, pretty much everything that's more metal than white stone, those are actually going to be Twitch drops that you will get, so they kind of expand on the existing Chome tier set, which I love them. I think they're very cool. Really
tous les morceaux de set un peu métalliques là, les fenêtres, le sol,
right? Lots of production going on. I love.
It was something that we were really de construction.
Pushy on in the game development, making sure that the fabricators actually show the items being crafted as they craft, so you see them form up inside the fabrication units. And yes, I know this isn't exactly something from Dune lore, this is one of the places where I was like, I have to make a concession to the game. They don't have fabricators, they're not mentioned in the law, but it's fine because it's cool. Rule of cool in some cases.
Là, il dit bon, les fabricateurs, c'est pas très.
There's also circuits.
Pas trop dans le lore de Dune, mais.
No, not actively. You can.
Okay.
Please feel free.
They're pretty neat. It's not like as intense as like Factorio, right? Making blue science or anything like that. But you are able to set up different circuits in your base, so you can have, you know, some containers feeding into some fabricators feeding into others. You'll never have 100% automation like you would get in a factory builder game, but it does enable you as you get to mid-game to start having a fair bit of automation in the game when you're playing, because water and electricity become
le jeu
quite
d'usine là, je sais
a
plus comment ça
burden
s'appelle.
if you don't start
Mais
upgrading the gear and
y a moyen avec les
infrastructure
circuits
like we
quand
were talking
même.
about before. So we introduced passive ways to get water, which is a huge help, because
il y aura
water
des moyens
in the
passifs
mid and to the end game even is really important through all aspects, not just survival but also crafting.
For my fellow lore nerds out there, we call it passive water generation wind traps.
I was just about to say there are actually some wind traps on this. And, we've seen some.
Et c'est les pièges à vent.
As well. And yeah, it's just like you also see here how much bigger those refineries are. We also saw a spice refinery as well, actually. Like
yeah, there was spice refineries there.
Yep.
Yeah, and that we just saw a room with some decorations in it as well.
Yeah,
like just to you can pimp up your area in
Et là,
a
on peut
sense,
voir
like
que les
put
tables
out
de craft sont
hologram.
vraiment
It was
beaucoup
quite
plus
funny.
grosses.
Here's a fun anecdote from development. The artist made a bunch of the artist made a bunch of pot plants. For people to put in their bases, and I was like, guys, it's June.
There's no water to water those.
So we have a lot of holograms.
Yeah,
I was like,
they
we
look
can
great,
have. Then I keep saying
c'est marrant parce que quand on développait au début, on a fait plein de pots pour les plantes, et après, ils étaient en mode, bah, en fait, c'est
so mad if I wasn't me right now.
If you like decorations, you need to explore quite a bit.
Mais les ont mis quand même en hologramme.
We don't unlock them all. Go to trade posts, go to places where there are people. You can unlock tons of the stuff that you're seeing around in the base here.
Exactly.
You have to work a little bit for it.
You have to work a little bit for it.
Like explore, find.
Tu peux pas débloquer toutes les décorations facilement, mais si tu te balades un peu dans les différents
things as well, like once you reach a certain stage in June, you can put shielded doors out, so you don't have to have doors that open and close.
Exactly.
And that's really useful for when you have flying vehicles, you want to land in hangars, you don't have to wait for a door to open.
Some of the cool stuff I've seen in beta is they will make a huge base, but it's kind of covering a road. So they'll open up the middle of it and then set the permissions on the Pinto shields so that you can actually drive through it. So you can't go into their base, but you can still go through the middle of their base, which is nice.
It's nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Good guy players.
Good guy players, yeah.
So I think we're actually
il disait, il y a des gens qui ont fait des bases à laquelle tu pouvais passer à travers.
A transport
Oh, nice.
Which,
no.
Not yet? Okay, not yet.
No, we're not.
Excuse me.
No, we're not. We're
going to run around the base a little bit more.
Not wrong. We're still doing other things.
That's an... Yeah, okay.
But
what
we'd like to do is, because we're actually going to go to a social hub later on, and we'd like to throw that to, unfortunately we can do only Twitch, so I'm sorry YouTube, we love you.
Et maintenant ils vont nous parler des social hubs,
it's just our
mais que pour Twitch.
Difficult, so we'd like to do a poll, throw that to Twitch chat only for today. Which of the social hubs you'd like to see? We have 2 available in the game right now.
Et là sur Twitch, on peut dire
one is Arkeen, the other one is Hardcore.
Si on veut voir le social hub Harkonnen
which of those you'd like to see today.
Ou Atreide.
So we give you like a few minutes to vote on that while our rockstars and wizards behind the scenes are preparing that poll for you, if it's not running already.
Atreide ou Harkonnen.
Talk a little bit.
One of the cool things that they were just showing there is the vehicle backup tool. I don't know if we've talked about that on stream too much, but once you build a sand bike or a light ornithopter, you can actually build a tool to hide it, or like, what's the lore reason, Joel?
Let's go with the Ritchie's perfected miniaturization technology, and the player is able to miniaturize their vehicle, and it only works for vehicles that have nothing in their inventory.
Correct. Yeah.
And 2 types of vehicle: the sand bike and the light scout ornithopter.
Yeah.
Oh, we're flying past.
Highly recommend always use it, right? When you're going to a location, land, store your vehicle. Don't let it get destroyed by
Ramasser les véhicules ne marche que avec la moto et l'ornithoptère léger.
I see we've gone with spoiler territory here, and we're flying over the giant power station of Misatariel.
Don't look.
I don't want to talk too much about it, but we'll let people figure that out in the game.
It looks cool.
It's my favorite location.
Me too.
It's
Mine
really
too.
Absolutely amazing.
Mine too.
And the story involved in it is
so
really cool.
please look forward to it.
And there we have someone doing their vulture roll, which is very nice. Can you hit your scanner as well, whoever's flying?
I'm not sure did it.
Yeah, so like that's vehicles obviously get like players got hand scanners probably in the beta, but now you're up to the stage where you actually have a scanner and you're scanning entire like islands by pumping C. So the idea is that again, as you progress, everything just takes a step up in how quickly you can do things. We wanted the game to feel, well, you've put in the effort to get this vehicle, we're going to give you the convenience of being able to scan an entire island.
Donc là il dit le but c'était maintenant tu peux scanner tout un énorme endroit avec ton hélicoptère. Le but c'était que tu sentes qu'il y a une évolution.
Super tight. I love that. Like right now, Arcane is slightly winning, so let's go.
Harco Village is cooler.
I agree though. Well, both.
We're gonna see some footage from Harco no matter what we do.
Sure, that's true.
Both are super cool, but I do like.
Yeah, just because you're an evil person.
Et c'est Atride.
Something about that
Célèbre Atride qui a gagné.
You know the fun part is I always try to go evil in like games where you have a choice, and then I end up good anyway.
Yeah,
like,
because you can't bring yourself to do it.
You're bad for those characters.
So these are the pilots. They were disabled in the beta. You may have met one at the first trade post if you were playing.
And we're going to Arcane, by the way.
We're going to Arcane?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
It's fine.
So we're going to go and visit Arcane. All right, that's cool. The pilot only takes cash. So you can't have credit. You have to have cash. So we're heading to Arcane.
She doesn't use it on sunscreen, that's for sure, because she was really sunburned. Like, so let's just get that out there. Yes. But yeah, you need to have the cash on you.
Pour aller au social hub.
One of the features in the game that we haven't really spoken about too much. I mean, well, we have a bit. We've spoken, but I don't think people picked it up in the beta. Oh, here we are. Well, I'll let us arrive because this is cool. This is Arcane. And as we arrive in Arcane, so one of the features we have in the game is the CommuniNet system. And when a player opens their CommuniNet, they can choose radio stations to listen to in the game, a la like a Fallout game or a GTA game. And this guy, Finno Gary, he runs this trash shop, but he actually has a show on the Atreides radio. Yeah. And if you listen to the show, it's his daughter talking about their adventures on how they got all this salvage that shows up. So it's kind of fun to just like narratively listen. You know, we tried to connect everything in the world. This is again, I want to make this point because I feel like I see it sometimes online and it's a little, let's say, disheartening. People, we were advertising the game and saying the word MMO, and then people were like, oh, they took all that off, and we took it off because we do feel like this is a huge world completely worth exploring with lots of other people.
Ils ont enlevé MMO
but
parce
it's
que
not an MMORPG, and people were getting confused by that.
Yeah.
So we took it down. But I think it's clear when you look at places like our social hubs, our exchange system, our banking system, that we have a lot of elements from those style of games.
C'est un monde immense.
So yeah, we're looking at the exchange right now.
Et tout.
Players can post things on the exchange, and this is the banker.
Et là, il dit avec la banque et toute cette ville, c'est vrai qu'on a l'impression d'être dans un MMO.
Items and credits, right? So say you're going to take a long vacation, you're worried about your base getting destroyed for some reason, you can actually fly to Arcane and dump a bunch of stuff in here.
I was actually thinking, is like one of the great things here is his mustache.
Sure, yeah, that's also
fantastic.
I mean, we've all seen
fantastic mustache. You also pay taxes here.
Yes.
Like, because you need to, like, for the
tu peux aussi payer tes taxes ici.
You actually need to make sure you have your taxes paid to the...
Et pour la radio, il disait en fait,
this is where you pay. This is the
tu peux choisir la radio que tu écoutes comme dans GTA ou
This is where you go to pay your
et t'as des personnages qui racontent un peu leurs histoires et tout.
So the first sub-thief console that you place on Arrakis, the basic one that you place in the starting area, you don't have any taxes to pay on that. But once you get a bit further into the game and you start building bigger bases,
première base que tu construis, t'as pas de taxes.
Once you start expanding that land claim, which you do through these land claim extenders, you start paying more tax. So the idea is that the larger guilds who have more members, who are more capable of achieving things in the game, they have a higher tax rate because they're building out larger spaces. And that, that's our way of making it fair for people who only play solo as well. Like, so they don't have as much tax to pay.
Et donc les gens qui vont jouer solo, ils vont avoir une petite base.
You really progress through
du coup,
the
payer moins de taxes.
So here's where you're going to come and officially join the Atreides or join the Harkonnens and start vying for the Lands Red system and getting involved in the politics of the entire world.
And this is where the advanced trainers are as well, for people who want to progress past the basic level of training in their particular chosen classes.
Except for Derek.
Oh, Derek, the planetologist, he's everywhere.
Les entraîneurs, je sais plus comment
he's everywhere.
He's a wandering mentor.
Les entraîneurs
You can find him
avancés.
anywhere.
Yeah, he's here, he's there, he's everywhere.
Bloquer le skill là qui est tout en haut.
Derek Schnauer. Okay, no, enough. Sorry.
Et de mettre plus qu'un
No,
point
but you have contracts here, of course, as well,
Yes,
and
contracts,
specific vendors, so they have a lot of things to sell as well.
Yes, and the main story brings you to
Ici, il y a aussi des vendeurs, des contrats.
So now we actually get a glimpse at the overland.
Yes,
so des parties de l'histoire
you can
principale.
use the pilots in the trade post to fly to the hubs like we showed, and you use those same pilots to get back. But once you have your own ornithopter, you can just fly to the edge of the Haga Basin map, and you'll get a prompt asking you if you'd like to go to the overland map. And
Tu
this
peux
is the
utiliser
overland map.
le
And this
taxi
is
là.
again one of the things that I think
Mais une fois que tu as ton premier, que tu as ton propre
breaks us away from
ornithoptère,
a
tu
standard
peux
survival game.
y aller
This
avec
is where
ton
we have the ability to infinitely expand this game, where we have multiple maps that players can go to. I think this is where you go to reach the deep desert. This is where you go to reach several of the story maps. Right now we've landed on a fuel deposit. We're just picking up a bit of fuel, refueling our ornithopter on there. We're able to expand here for a long time, and this is kind of part of what, again, we wanted to do to make this a coherent universe, right? And make Dune feel like something that, we're going to be working on and adding to for a long time.
So post-launch, there will be new locations that show up here.
Yes.
We'll have events that have locations here for short durations, right? For to shake things up, and eventually when we release huge content drops.
Il parle de la cohérence du monde et que grâce à cette map, ils vont pouvoir augmenter à l'infini le jeu et que ça sera cohérent.
Into the story that
des nouvelles maps.
we really would like to talk a little bit more about, because we haven't, as you mentioned, it takes a while to also get the story going. So people during the beta weekend haven't actually seen much of that.
Yeah.
So via the overland map, you can also access some of these story dungeons, and we actually do have some footage of one of those dungeons that await you. And Joel and Scott can probably give a little bit of context to what we're seeing.
Part of Act 2.
So here we're not going to spoil too much of the story, but this is kind of the theme of Act 2, right? You've moved from a survivor doing the trials, now you're getting involved in the politics.
Et on rentre
so there's a lot more interaction with NPCs, dialogue, there's a lot more cinematics.
En interaction avec la politique.
And a lot of locations outside the Haga Basin that you'll be going to.
One of my favorite characters too.
Yeah,
I love her. Everyone does.
In the Cone of Silence.
We didn't mention the Cone of Silence, but you're inside the Cone of Silence here, and the game actually dampens all the sound outside of it when you enter, which is pretty cool.
To be distributed in the water supply of this water shipper.
Chormurky for law people who understand.
What is that, by the way? I actually don't know what
the
that
Assassin's
is.
Handbook describes certain poisons. Chormurky is poison in the drink.
That's actually something I didn't know. I was wondering about that earlier. I didn't know what that term is.
So you see we have a dialogue system in the game where you can make choices based on several of the things that you've done in the game as well.
Là, il dit qu'on peut faire plusieurs choix selon ce qu'on a fait dans le jeu. Dans des choix de dialogue.
It's not like, we're not making an Obsidian RPG with all of the choices that something like that has, but we're doing a level of this that's above and beyond what most survival games do, I think.
De choix,
You'll be interacting with some Dune
mais quand même.
Well, look at her last name. Dune fans probably recognize already that last name.
Yep.
All right, so we're skipping ahead here. We've jumped to the part of the mission where you're heading towards the water shipper's mansion, which is in the Imperial Basin just outside of Arakeen. The player is being sent there to assassinate and poison this water shipper on behalf of the Lara Tuek. And so, we come to this new level on the overland map.
Donc le joueur est envoyé là pour assassiner quelqu'un.
Yes. Yeah, she's talking and explaining the mission, but I can't hear it, so I'm just... But
one of the things we wanted to do is make sure all the abilities still work in these, so it is still very sandboxy.
Yeah.
There will always be multiple approaches. You know, if you have a Shigglewire Claw, you can use that to grapple and hook over some areas. If not, then you're going to have to be a little bit more stealthy and avoid the searchlights.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where our philosophy is like we give people all these tools, but it's a sandbox, play the way you want to play. Like, here it's, we have to find a guy called Yargin, does her contact. And so like it's like we're quite nice to people. You might get spotted, but you can escape the lights quickly.
Yeah.
That's the one we found here.
You can read the dialogue here. It's fun. One of those ones.
And again, depending on your background, they actually get different choices to to the dialogue.
Character creation is important.
Yes.
This he's a grumpy guy.
I agreed to help Alara with this. It was because her old man got me out of a few scrapes back in the day. But if you get caught, we ain't met.
Especially when he talks about the place.
Got it?
You'll appreciate this option.
Good.
I know.
Then ask your questions.
It's like, so which background?
Like a princess's virtue.
Which background do you have to get that option now?
Bon, là, il parle des
That one's for
dialogues.
everyone, for free.
It's for everyone, that's for free. Okay,
Et du
there you go.
personnage
I love that we have it in a video too.
qui est en
But
train de parler.
there's so many little Easter eggs and fun things that you also wrote, like especially also for like weapon descriptions. Super fun. Like everything's connected. Like for those of
Même dans
you
les
who do
descriptions
like
des
lore,
armes.
who know Dune lore as well, you will find a lot of connections. But also for the ones who don't,
Yeah.
it's super fun to just.
He's also explaining the different ways that you can approach this quest right now. So he's sort of explaining to you, there's like 2 paths that you can take.
Et là,
like,
le
you don't have
PNJ
to
est
go
en train
this way, you don't
d'expliquer
have to go that
comment
way. Here's how you can get in, there's how you can
vite
get
fait
in,
la
right?
base.
So as a player, you can approach this, again, in kind of that sandbox approach. It's like, again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not an immersive sim where you have like the Dishonored level of, but you can definitely find alternate paths into the mansion to achieve your mission. And I think that like a shout out to the story content team with Bernard and the boys, as I call them. They've done a great job with these, setting them up. And here's what Scott was talking about, where you know, like I've set the game up in this way. I'm a Bene Gesserit. I'm just going to stun this guy. And then I'll be able to walk past him and he won't even notice me. He won't call up. He won't call the guards because he doesn't see me. Right? And so you can use your abilities, your skills that you've picked up in the game to just pass through these areas.
Passer dans cette mission.
And yeah, it's kind of fun, right? And we just wanted to show that we have more than just, you know, the basic survival game. There's way more going on here.
Yeah, especially like I think it takes about, if you let's assume you ignore everything else, because there's a lot of choices for you how you want to approach Dune Awakening and what there's to do. But let's assume you're only going for the main story and like those cinematics and things. So it takes I did talk to Niels about it as well.
On fait que la mission principale.
It takes about 30 hours until the story really gets going.
À peu près 30 heures.
Playing by yourself, just experiencing all the survival elements and going at it alone. Yeah, probably 30 hours to get to part 2.
Yeah, it's deliberately like I'm not defensive about Act 1, but the first part of the game is deliberately somewhat light, just to give people that like learn the world, acclimatize yourself, like follow up on the Fremen. You have the Fremen trials, and it's super interesting, and then we start introducing and layering the politics of the universe and more of this stuff.
Au début, c'est vraiment tu découvres le monde, un peu tuto et tout ça.
What's going on? Why are you the one being asked to do this? What's happening?
And ultimately, it is a survival game first, right? So the player needs to learn how to survive in Arrakis, right? And it's a very harsh environment. There's a lot of mechanics to figure out, and then you have to make your way through there and figure out how to get outside of the Haga Basin right before you can experience, more of the politics and intrigue that are going on.
Exactly. And I really love that we have, I mean, the beginning of the game is kind of story driven, right? You get context to where you, a little bit of context what's actually happening. You have a person that talks to you and helps you at the beginning, and then as you mentioned, it goes more into learning the actual mechanics and the tutorialization of the game. And we give you time to get a bit acquainted with everything, or not everything, but a lot of the things, like the basic mechanics, and then we approach you again with the story a bit later on. And I really love that too.
I love this guy, but we're cutting now because we're not going to spoil too much of what's going on.
No, exactly. So obviously we don't want to show too much more to this dungeon. What we're going to do now, though, is we're actually going to watch another video that's going to lead us into our next segment. So enjoy.
Cool.
Et on est parti pour le prochain segment. Explication du lance-rade.
Given the right lever, you can move a planet. In Dune Awakening, your path to power leads you through the great houses. But only accomplished guilds may earn their place among the Atreides or Harkonnen. swear your allegiance, and contribute to their rise in desert power. The pledge is only the beginning. You have come far, and now it's time to take control of the Landsraad. The Landsraad is the council of great houses that make decisions that impact all the players on all the servers in your world. Your goal, and that of your guild, is to secure their votes so that your faction, the Harkonnen or Atreides, can take control. To secure their votes and sway them to your side, you must complete specific house requirements on the Landsraad board. Alone or together with your guild, your efforts can move the needle. Be the first to fulfill a house requirement to not only secure their vote, but also reap their many rewards.
Et ça te permet d'avoir
Whether you enjoy PvE
le vote de la maison
or PvP,
et des
there
récompenses.
are many paths to victory.
Que vous aimiez le PvE ou le PvP,
If you prefer the relative
il y a plein de
safety of the
chemins vers la
shield
victoire.
wall, there are many activities that will not put you into direct conflict with other players, while still contributing to your faction's rise to power.
Là, il parle que
House
il y a moyen
Torvald wants you to eliminate sandflies.
d'aider le lancera dans PvE.
Rush in, or pick off the deserters one by one with your sniper rifle.
Par exemple,
House
dans cette base, tu
Rashis
peux
wants a delivery
rush.
of ground cars.
les
Join
faire
up
par
with
un.
friends and build strongholds for large-scale production, and deliver them safely to the House representative by ground or air. Large-scale production is costly and will require a lot of resources. To be able to craft certain high-tier items, you will also need the most sought-after resource of all.
Certains crafts demandent beaucoup de
Spice.
ressources, et pour crafter les plus hauts,
You can buy
vous aurez
spice
besoin
from
d'épices.
spice merchants
On peut acheter
or on the player
marchand
run
d'épices.
exchange. And it can even be found in smaller pockets
Dans
behind
le
the
shop.
shield wall.
des échanges entre joueurs.
But to
Et bien sûr, tu
collect
peux le récolter.
industrial quantities,
Mais pour en collecter
you must
des quantités
venture
industrielles,
into the unknown.
tu dois aller dans
The
l'inconnu,
deep desert beckons.
le deep desert.
Here, violent Coriolis storms sweep across the vast expanse of sand, resetting the map every week,
La tempête Coriolis
revealing new resources to mine,
fait changer la map toutes les semaines et révèle
and
des
points of
nouvelles
interest
ressources à miner,
to explore.
des nouveaux points d'intérêt à explorer.
This ever-changing environment offers endless exploration,
Cet environnement
also
qui change tout le temps
endless conflict.
offre une exploration sans limite
Each
et des
house in the
conflits sans limite.
Landsraad desires a specific control point in the deep desert.
Il y a aussi
Seize
des
it
points à contrôler.
and hold it over time to gain their vote. Fortify it and be ready for a fight.
Si tu le
Other
contrôles assez
players will
longtemps,
soon come to take it from you.
tu peux gagner un vote. Ça c'est une quête, une des quêtes de la maison de
The
Landsraad.
deep desert is also home to frequent spice blows, offering large quantities of the precious melange.
Le Deep Desert est aussi le théâtre
You need a lot
d'explosion
of
d'épices
spice. Once you've
qui permet de
located a
récolter
spice
énormément.
blow, move your harvesters in place to collect.
Si t'en vois un,
Just be ready to defend it with your
sois
life.
prêt à te défendre et amène tout pour le récolter. Ah, mais si ça c'est un vrai verre du désert, il y en a qui sont
After
vraiment
a week
immenses.
of politics, manufacturing, and conflict, one side emerges victoriously.
Au bout du compte, un des
The
deux côtés
Harkonnen have seized the Landsrad,
and
the leaders of the player guilds who contributed to their victory
les Harkonnen ont
all
gagné.
get to vote for a decree that will impact everyone on a server belonging to that world. They choose to unlock exclusive weapon imports rights.
Ils peuvent donc
By
voter pour un
decree
décret
of
qui
the
va impacter tout le
Landsrad
monde.
Council, under the seal of His Imperial Majesty, a trade consortium has been authorized to visit Arrakis, providing Harkonnen players with exclusive access to a unique weapons vendor.
Et là, ça permet aux Harkonnen d'avoir accès à un vendeur spécial, par exemple.
As the Harkonnen Landsrad term begins, the race for control in the next term.
Ah, mon stream a crash. Ou alors c'est
eux qui ont crash.
Ah ouais.
I like it.
Welcome back. No technical problems at all. It's all fine. No one would have noticed if you didn't say anything, Scott.
Sorry. That's my job.
Pretty sure I couldn't hear it, but I'm pretty sure it cut off mid-VO.
It probably did. Yes, I couldn't hear it either. But the video is going to be available after the stream anyway, so you can watch it in all its glory.
On pourra voir la vidéo
talk about Landsrad.
en dehors du stream.
Let's go to the next segment. Endgame and Landsrad. So we know people have, of course, expectations of what the endgame and Landsrad, and
Donc on va parler du Landsrad et de l'endgame, mais
looks
surtout
like,
du
and
Deep Desert.
what it's for, and how people will use the Deep Desert, and how it works. A lot of those things. But I think before we go into more details and show some really exciting gameplay as well,
on va montrer plein de
Joel,
détails et du
I think it'd
gameplay.
be cool to talk about the vision for what the endgame is supposed to be, right?
C'est quoi la vision pour l'endgame?
I think, like going back to when I joined the project.
Quand il a rejoint le projet,
ago, right?
Il y a 5
and
ans.
we were talking about what is a good survival game.
Il parlait de
because
qu'est-ce qu'un
we were
bon
making a Dune
jeu de
survival game.
survie.
And we were talking about what is the vision for an end game in Dune.
Et ça serait quoi la vision
the kind of the
l'endgame
goal and
dans
the
Dune?
idea, at least in the beginning, was like we started with,
La vidéo au
hey,
début,
like you start by surviving.
c'est-à-dire tu commences par survivre dans le désert.
Nature versus, mankind kind of thing. It's the
Et
sun,
c'est
it's the
vraiment
sandworms,
l'homme
it's the
contre la
storms.
nature.
But then you move into this new mode of survival, which is political survival, which is
Mais
the
ensuite,
end game
tu
of the game needs to be
changes
about these big forces.
de mode de
The
survie, mais
Imperium
c'est
is
la
made up of the
survie
the
politique.
great houses, the Landsrad, the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, Chome. All of these things have an influence, and you as a player are just a small cog in the machine. But we want you to be able to feel like you're participating in this big umbrella
Et avec
system.
toutes ces
And
forces,
so we started there, and then we talked about like there's an element of
vous
like
voulez faire
I
sentir le
think
joueur
very
comme un
technical
petit
game design
grain de
here, where we
sable.
talk about player activity cycles through the week. I was looking at like games like Rust. Rust has their server resets, which is great
Ils pensent
for
à des
like
jeux comme
people
Rust,
to start building up,
avec
and people
leur,
really enjoy that cycle. But a lot of
les serveurs
people also
qui reset.
love having their stuff and not losing it. And so we talked about like, okay,
Mais
what
en
about
mode,
a
oui, mais
place?
les
And
gens
in Dune,
ont
it's
des
perfect,
stuff,
right?
ils
You
veulent
have
pas
these
les
Coriolis
perdre.
storms, and there's scenes in the book where the sand is just tearing apart cliff faces and ripping down the things in the desert and revealing things from beneath the sand. And so we said, okay, what if we had a map, the deep desert, and in the
Et donc
deep
ils se sont dit,
desert,
bah, c'est parfait
the
pour Dune
landscape
avec ses
changes
grosses
every week. How does that affect
tempêtes.
gameplay? And then we
Et ben, il
started
y
there
aurait
and
le
we talked
Deep
about,
Desert qui change toutes
okay,
les semaines.
what about if there's a cycle of events that we want players to go through? And again, this is a high-level design.
We might actually have an infographic or a visual asset for that. A week cycle of.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Cool. Fun. You guys are on top of things. I know nothing. Oh,
No,
no,
not that one.
sorry.
Not
That's
this
not
one.
that one.
Et on a une infographie pour vous montrer ça,
okay.
mais c'est pas celle-là.
Either way, I
Maybe
can
it's
just
not right. Maybe
I
we
can just-
didn't
I
make it
can
in
just
time.
keep talking.
Yeah,
Just
go
keep
for
going.
it.
It's
Go
fine.
for
Sorry,
it.
everyone. I know it's just
Go for
boring
it.
old Joel. But like we wanted to approach this right. So we were like, okay, what if there's a map that resets and the map changes every week?
Donc, s'il y avait une map
so that it's an
qui
infinitely explorable space.
recommençait toutes les
And we
semaines,
worked backwards from there, and we said, how do we build
comme ça c'est de
a
l'exploration.
lot of our game systems towards this? So we
Infini,
started with
et on va
the
faire
idea
les-
of, yes, the map resets.
le
When would we
gameplay
want to
autour.
reset the map? Let's say we reset it on the lowest player activity day of the week, right, which tends to be a Tuesday night or a Wednesday
Donc ça va reset
in these kind of online games. And then we're like,
là où il y
okay,
a le
and
moins
then
de
there's this
joueurs
activity
qui
we
sont en
call
train de jouer.
scouting. and cartography. And then we built a game mechanic around cartography and scouting, which I think we're going to show in a little bit. And that is, and maybe you saw it, we definitely tutorialized it in the beta, you reveal parts of the map. And then we made it so that you can save those maps and sell them to other players. So we create a loop there for players who are scouts, and that happens, let's say, you know, in a player activity week, it happens during the low web. The deep desert gets revealed. Everybody needs information.
Comme la map
How do we make
change,
information a commodity? We create a cartography and a scouting
toutes les semaines, ils ont
then once that
créé le
information
système
is
pour
gathered, people share it with their
créer
friends
des
and their
maps,
guilds.
révéler
Then
les
they start
maps.
setting up what we call a logistics plan. How am I going to control the spaces in the deep desert that I want to control? What is my guild looking for? Are we looking for spice? Are we looking for unique schematics? Are we going after shipwrecks? Are we going after the ecology labs that have been revealed? Like, what are we doing this week? So then they go set up. And then the weekend, which is when the highest player activity count is, that's when people are online. And that's where people really participate in the activities in the deep desert, whether that is running ecology labs with their friends or shipwrecks or fighting over like control points in the deep desert.
Est-ce qu'on veut explorer des trucs pour des
after the weekend,
Est-ce qu'on veut
sorry, I should say, on top of this as an umbrella is the Landsrad. And the Landsrad are asking you to do activities that take place both in the deep desert, but also outside of the deep desert. There's a lot of PvE stuff in there. And then at the end of that activity cycle, everybody votes. It sets a server-wide change, like a worldwide, I think we should say in our terminology. It changes every rule set in the world can be changed by the Landsrad. And then the Coriolis Storm happens again on a Tuesday, and we start over again.
Bon, là, il a juste décrit le Landsrad, quoi.
And this is kind of the vision and dream for how the end game should play out and how we would like it to work. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about how that we've set everything up for this to be the case, but of course, no plan survives first contact with players. So another point I would like to make is just we're a live game. We'll continue to tweak and update these things. So, but let's maybe look at and talk
Il veut
about.
parler d'un autre point, c'est que ça va être
gameplay, actually, some activities that you might be wanting to do.
Jeu qui va être update.
So we have like actually a team here that will now go into the desert.
Okay, so we've gone through the overland map.
Yeah, we're
in the shield wall, which is the southern part of the deep desert.
It's the PvE area.
Correct. Yeah.
This is the PvE space.
It was important for us so that people that are scared of PvP or reluctant to get engaged with it, right, that they had a place in the deep desert.
C'était important pour eux que
instantly getting killed as soon as you're coming through.
Ceux qui n'ont pas envie de faire de PvP puissent participer quand même.
Or whatever from other games. And this is also where you set up your base of operations.
Yes.
The very first area, because the deep desert is gigantic. There's no water here.
Yes.
And you need to have the logistics set up, and you know, like you can go there by yourself. Like I fly there on beta. I try to stay away from people because, as we said, we're not great at PvP necessarily.
People call it ratting.
Yeah, ratting.
You can go in and rat.
Oh, I'm totally rat. Absolutely.
But just to point out one thing here, because these guys are using. So again, coming back to like how do we get towards this vision? We started with how do you build you know this is going to get wiped every week. How do we encourage people to build bases? Well, first of all, we created this blueprinting system. You bring the diagram of your base, you place it out, and you build it quickly, right? This is very fast. It doesn't take very long when you're with a few friends. You get a base put down, you build it up quickly. This is part of the logistics cycle of the deep desert.
And you can either bring the resources from Haga Basin and all the vehicles that you're bringing with you, or you can harvest there's quite a bit of resources in the shield wall. You know, so you can set this up.
So this is what's happening here. We're building a forwarding base.
Exactly. I was going to say that this is obviously a forwarding base because it is kind of very boxy again compared to like the actual home bases that we saw earlier. Because this is all about efficiency, right?
Yes.
And like fitting your the storages and all the machines that you need, you know, now my brain just stopped working.
C'est surtout une question d'efficacité.
Yeah. And we made a change.
Avec ton schéma, tu
it's just the building costs are different in the deep desert, so it costs half as much to build everywhere.
Building
and you get
is
100% when you're breaking things down. Just because we know you're going to be redoing this every week, there's going to be some loss, right? You know, so we're trying to make it easy and accessible in the ways that we can, while still keeping the threat there.
Yes.
And the intensity, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's it, right? Like the deep desert is a little bit about that tension as well, that feeling of like. So we're building here. It's the PvE area. I expect people to build their primary like weekly base in the PvE area, and then maybe set out some logistics bases so that they can do things like refining spice. And that's where it becomes an interesting kind of like, we'll see how people play out these scenarios in the actual deep desert in the game, but this is kind of the expected behavior. This is what we hope people will do. And we've tried to build all the mechanics into place so that people can do this, right? And that's been a large part of it.
You also see co-building here. There's actually several people working on this.
Yeah, everyone's working together, right?
Yeah,
and that's
which is super nice.
That's the guild focus as well. Like you know, it is a multiplayer game. It's really important to make sure that people can play together and do things together. And I think the fun part in this game and this style of game is that it extends beyond like the traditional MMO experience of like we can fight things together, right? And we can role play together, but you know, you're not building things together, you're not crafting vehicles together, right?
Là, ils disent ce qui est bien, c'est que on va pouvoir
And it's just cool to see how quick
jouer tous ensemble, construire tous ensemble, alors que d'habitude dans les MMO, je tue des mobs
even though it's
ensemble, et là, ça va plus loin, c'est aussi fabriquer des véhicules, fabriquer des...
it's quite impressive.
I know that people were also wondering that you won't be able to, you know, copy that your setup inside. So this is literally, the blueprint is for the building itself. So everything inside.
Correct, yeah. You still have to put the placeables in.
So we're behind the shield wall. I think
mais c'est que pour les blueprints, c'est que le bâtiment, tu peux pas copier aussi les de craft à l'intérieur.
So this is behind the shield wall, and then you come out into the deep desert. And
non, c'est la zone PvE dans le...
Oh yeah, sorry, behind the shield wall, there's also PvE elements here. This is the PvE space. So there are things like shipwrecks that you can raid. There are like ecolabs behind here. So there is a section of the deep desert. I know people are really worried about doing PvP. There's a whole section here, it's 24 kilometers long, where you can actually go and like do the PvE part. And we're about to see, well this will take a few seconds.
We're actually,
So now we're surveying the land in this section.
Mais ici, il y a une zone de 20 km.
Reveal itself. And this is like one of the PvE segments of the deep desert. And what you'll see here is that we've surveyed one square. And just to give some context, that's one of 81 squares within this map.
Il y a 80 carrés dans le désert. Et là, par exemple, avec ce truc pour révéler, elle a révélé qu'un seul carré.
As well, come into play.
So now, I don't know whose name it is, but whichever player it is crafting a... They have surveyed, now they're going to craft a sync chart. They have crafted a sync chart of the deep desert. It tells you in the information which sector of the deep desert, who created it, how long ago it was created, so you understand whether the information's out of date or in date. They're going to share that sync chart with their friends. And then their friends, hopefully, will be able to switch camera perspective and see their friend apply the sync chart, which saves them having to explore. So this is that cartography look.
You could go out with like a really quick ornithopter.
Look at this.
Et donc on peut faire la cartographie.
To the left.
But you can go out with like an exploration kit, right? That's really fast. That you can go around. You don't have much harvesting abilities, right? And then you scout the area, bring it back. And then, you know, your base can roll out with your transport ornithopters, your
Il y a aussi un ornithoptère qui est vraiment fait pour l'exploration et il va plus vite. Tu peux pas trop miner avec, mais par contre, il va vraiment vite.
I expect people to
pour explorer, cartographier
figuring things out and how they're going to work together to do these things. But there's roles here, right? Like again, we tried to really build this game with different roles for different people within guilds.
Exactly.
So the idea is, maybe I'm just the scout and that's what I do because I hate going into fights.
Avoir différents rôles dans la guilde, par exemple explorateur qui va faire des cartes, pendant qu'il y en a d'autres qui sont en train de construire la base.
What do we need to harvest? What do we need for our crafting? Are there uniques that we're looking for? Are there specific uniques? I think one of the really important points about the Deep Desert is that like the unique schematics, the Imperial permits, which maybe people saw, the purple ones, they're on a limited loot setup, so you don't get the same ones every week, and the layouts of the Deep Desert change. Here we see the trading system. The sync chart's been traded.
And those schematics you can only make a certain amount of times.
Yeah, and now we're going to consume the sync chart, and then we're going to open our map and see that the sector has been cleared, the same sector.
Et l'autre personne va consommer la map.
So this is kind of cool. You can create copies of this and pass it off to your guild. You can create copies and sell them on the exchange to other players as well.
Yes, and while now they're actually building a transport ornithopter, we can actually quickly talk about the Periodic Storm in combination with the map, because we actually have a visual asset here that shows how they can look like on the map.
We can talk about the rotation. So this is like, so let's see that we're going to see 3 weeks of Coriolis Storm changes to the map. So this is week 1. And then we move to, and you can see that there's like one eco lab, a shipwreck, and a cave there.
Donc, par
right?
exemple, là, ça serait la première semaine
and some spice
du désert.
And then to the next week,
la saison d'après, la semaine d'après,
where things are is different. There's a control point now in the bottom left. There's an eco lab in a different place, and a shipwreck that's been uncovered.
And there will be different loot and
different loot in all of them. And then we go one more week again. And now you can see that this is a bit larger. There's another control point. It's a different house control point now. Different spaces on the map. A couple of eco labs this time. 4 or 5 caves and the shipwreck.
Et là, troisième semaine,
so you can sort of see how this changes and how this loot encourages exploration for people each week.
And that's
Et le but, c'est d'encourager l'exploration.
One of
81st.
Et ça, c'est un carré.
But I will say this, it's a very big desert with a lot of space. Yes. So there's not all the tiles are that populated each week. So people aren't like, oh, there's not 15 eco labs in every square, right?
No.
Like it's a
more
big
sparse.
Barren place. And this is also like important because if we want people to fight over things, we actually need to draw them to the same places to fight over specific things in PvP.
Yes.
Et tout n'est pas forcément rempli d'endroits, de petits donjons, d'endroits à loot et tout, pour que les joueurs se rejoignent à certains endroits et que
flying vehicle that you can craft in the game.
Ça se tape, quoi.
And this may be my favorite game mechanic because the transport ornithopter can pick things up, and I love it because it can pick up almost anything.
Et là, ils vont nous montrer l'ornithoptère de transport.
So one of the things you'll see in the mid game is like the buggy is really hard to get to places, right? Even though it mines so much more than you can ever possibly mine yourself, but it's a pain, right, to get up on the shield wall or to get it out here.
Mais le buggy, par exemple, il est compliqué à transporter parce que.
Storage and use the transport ornithopter to pick it up and carry it. Are we going to show an example of carrying?
Dans le pistolet là.
Yes, we are, because what we're actually preparing for here is.
Alors qu'il est bien utile pour miner, etc. Mais du coup, là, avec l'ordinateur de transfert, tu vas pouvoir transporter le.
So now we're coming out into what I call the real deep desert, right? This is actually
Et là,
what
on
you think
arrive
of when you think
au
of
vrai deep
Arrakis
desert.
from the movies, right? So this is we just got the nice tutorial pop up talking about the deep desert.
Yes.
So this is the Arrakis that we know from the films. So Hagar Basin is like and it's taking a lot of the information that we have from the books and about like the different biomes and things and making it into a truly sort of interesting PvE experience. But this is the true deep desert of Arrakis. This is a place where people are scared to go. This is where the Fremen live. We're passing outside the shield wall now. This is where the War of Assassins and the PvP is allowed to happen.
Spice blow.
And you can see a spice blow in the distance, which draws people from miles around to go there, right? And I do want to say, this section here, if you turn the camera right and left, you can see that we have the shield wall. This is 24 kilometers long, and you can't see people all the way along. So people who are like nervous about going into the deep desert because they're worried about, the PvP is, I think there's like an element from my end, a designed moment that we've talked about on this project quite often is like, you come to the edge of this vast ocean, and you dip your toe in the water, and you're a little bit scared of sharks, but you see something in the distance and you think, I can make it. I can get there and I can get back. And the first time it's scary.
Ah, ça c'est vraiment un peu comme ça.
And the second time, and the
il dit bon, il y a plein de gens qui ont peur, mais en vérité, tu vas forcément aller au bord et tenter, voir un truc au loin et te dire ah ça a l'air pas mal et essayer d'y aller. Au fur et à mesure, tu vas t'habituer. Tu vas le faire une fois, ça va marcher.
In Dune, you were given the tools to get away, right? Like if overwhelming amounts of people come after you, maybe you can't quite get away, but that's generally not going to happen. So a lot of it is more about, PvP is about controlling a point and like having to give up that point if you don't feel like fighting
over things instead of kicking down sandcastles. Exactly. So on the Landsrad here, this is kind of interesting, right? So you can see the Landsrad's in the state of like, if we claim this as the Atreides, we're going to win what we call a Sizzlerad. And a Sizzlerad means that we're going to get the voting power for the week. So a Sizzlerad is when we can complete a row. So normally, if you were Harkonnen and Atreides in this situation, you'd both be fighting over this particular control point because you really don't want the other one to win for the week. But normally, as well, it's kind of you're always blocking each other and causing the other team have to go back and focus on filling out a row or trying to fill out as many squares as possible. So we're trying to take the House Hagel owns this control point in the deep desert. we're in the deep desert as Atreides taking over this control point on their behalf. And you can see it's just this control point. It's a place that you have to defend in the deep desert. It'll draw other people.
Et là, par exemple, c'est
and it will earn you points over time. It's a classic control point in the deep desert. One other thing, just if you stop for a second here, one other thing I just wanted to point out, one of the feedbacks we had in beta was about team markers. You can see our new team marker system in the game here.
Et maintenant, ils ont ajouté des icônes au-dessus.
Only for the 4-person groups. I will not allow this to be in the game for guilds.
4 personnes de ton
because
groupe.
I want, like, especially I know people talk about Zergs. I think when Zerg guilds and there's 40 people attacking each other on the screen, if everybody can see who's in their guild, it's very easy to target the people that you're trying to Zerg.
Et
but
donc voilà, là ils ont mis des icônes pour les 4
group,
personnes de ton groupe,
then it's
mais
much more difficult for Zergs to actually not do friendly fire.
Yeah.
And there is full friendly fire on guilds.
I mean, they can do it if they work for it, right? They can make sure everyone
pour
has the
nerf
same
les elfes, donc la grosse guilde.
Ways to do it, but
Et il y a le full TK sur les grosses guildes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
we didn't want to take
no
away
artificial.
Yeah, like it's been one of my. Let's say I will say this is one of those things where I have had to fight with a lot of developers on this project about this. There's a crashed ship down there, by the way. It's kind of cool that you could also go loot that. But like it's like giving too much information for free to players actually limits our ability for people to have politics and intrigue.
Yeah.
Because if I can see your name over your head, I know who you are, right? But if I can't, if I don't know who that is, and you dress in my clothing and you walk into my base and you follow me around, it's like I might just think that you're my friend from the guild, when in fact you're just like, trying to infiltrate. And we want to allow that possibility because that is Dune. At its core, that is how things work. There are plans within plans, there are groups within groups.
Ah, c'est pas
I
mal
remember
ça.
that from early on, where you're
Il s'est battu avec les autres devs pour qu'il n'y ait pas trop d'infos non plus.
That was a
Pour
very
pouvoir permettre
Can I just
l'infiltration.
point out that we just crossed a server border?
Yeah.
Like our game has server meshing tech in the deep desert, and it's been a very painful technical thing to get working.
Yes.
But we just crossed a server border. You probably might not have even noticed any sort of hitching or anything because it's very seamless. And again, shout out to our technical team who've been working their butts off to get this in good shape. But we just crossed a server border from one server to another, and it's basically not visible, which is great.
Là, apparemment, ils sont passés d'un serveur à l'autre, mais c'est une.
So now we're picking up a random sandcrawler and bringing it out to the spice harvesting field. So, I mean, I love that. I love that mechanic. I think it's fantastic fun in the game, just picking things up.
The transport ornithopter is quite slow.
Yeah, it's very slow.
So it is dangerous to go out just in the transport ornithopter.
And you can, of course, sit in the harvester while being
Sure.
transported, which is really fun too.
You can also, I think the transport ornithopter has like 5 seats as well. So you can bring a whole little group with you.
Or have them
Kidnap other enemy harvesters as well, which is also super fun to do.
But we should talk about
Tu peux même
spice.
kidnapper
That
les
really ties the entire end game together.
les
right?
tanks là de faire les trucs pour miner des ennemis.
The tier 6 or the last set of resources, right? Everything requires spice to craft it. So
sur les derniers tiers, tout demande de l'épice pour crafter.
Tools, end-game vehicles.
Everything in game requires spice for crafting, essentially. And also, we mentioned the Landsrad. The Landsrad has always the center square of the Landsrad requires spice to win. It's important. The Sandcrawler is it's not the full harvesters that you've seen in the films. Those are owned by the big houses. But as you can see here, this is like a little raid event. We just placed a thumper on the sand. We have a guy on a bike. He's riding around dropping thumpers.
You should also hear it actually on stream now. You hear
the thumpers are really important because sandworms roam the deep desert. They will be coming, and you need to be placing out thumpers to distract them away from that sandcrawler while it's harvesting spice. And you want to keep it on the spice as long as possible, just like in the book. You want to stay on the spice, earn as much profit as you possibly can. You can even see the trail that the sandcrawler is leaving in the spice as it sucks up spice into its little vacuum pack.
Yeah, so the sandworm stops being, it not stops, but it's less of a threat as you're going
Il dit c'est important de mettre des dumpers, le truc qui tape sur le sol là.
There's sandworms all over the place.
Pour attirer le ver, pour pas que il mange le.
So you saw the sandworm just took that thumper. Hopefully our intrepid thumper places have put out more of them.
Donc il y a un gars en moto qui
they're totally well organized. They have several people placing out thumpers. They have the scouts here in the air that we see as well.
Qui met ça pour attirer le ver et en même temps t'as un autre gars qui collecte
our transport to be ready for any kind of danger that might occur.
And so as soon as the sandcrawler like the person driving the sandcrawler knows that they're the target of the sandworm, they need to radio in and be like, get me off the sand, so that the transport ornithopter will pick them up. But at the moment, I think we're using the thumpers effectively as a team, and this is a part of it, right? Like this is why the Deep Desert is very Dune. I don't think you have this experience in any other game.
Et le but c'est vraiment que
and the idea was
un
to
travail
create this. So if you are here with your guild, there's something to do and it's fun and it's interesting. But then other players might show up as well, and that's where it becomes
bien sûr,
another step, right?
So you're saying it's not just reskin.
Tu as aussi la menace qu'il y ait d'autres joueurs qui
We
arrivent
can talk about what the word reskin means. We can talk about that some of the best games in the world are reskins of other games.
So you see here though that there is a lot of sandworms that are popping up here constantly, which is both fantasy but also terrifying.
There is a limit to how much they will eat thumpers, right?
Yes.
They do eventually get annoyed.
Eventually they have enough.
I'm not that dumb, right? Like
they'll eat thumpers for a while.
I see what you
Ils disent qu'il y a quand même une limite. Les vers au bout d'un moment ils en ont marre de manger les trucs qui tapent dans le sol.
Also potentially looking out for sandstorms coming in. Of
sandstorms,
course, they're kind of devastating in this particular.
Donc il faut faire attention parce qu'au bout d'un moment.
Enemies coming in as well.
Enemies coming in. So it's this is kind of the experience of like harvesting spice in the Deep Desert from a large spice blow. And there are smaller spice blows like that you can come to with a smaller guild.
We also have them in Haga Basin, of course.
Yes.
Il y a aussi des petits endroits où tu peux ramasser de l'épice.
Because we wanted spice to be a rare resource that you need to go out here into the Deep Desert to get.
And talking about like concentration of people, like the spice blow you can see from really far away, right? 20 plus kilometers away. So you do need to bring some friends to be looking out for other people coming in.
Yep.
There's another thumper down there.
Et il dit l'épice ça se voit vraiment de loin, donc faut y aller à plusieurs pour la récolter.
People are like, well, you have to go into the Deep Desert to get like the highest type of gear and such.
That is not true. We have the exchange. We just showed that before, right? So you can be somebody that is making something that a person on the exchange would want, right? That goes into the Deep Desert to get spice or to get, like some schematics.
Et
they can go to our
qu'est-ce qu'on a à dire sur les gens qui veulent pas du PVP?
Trade on the exchange. Or you can meet up in person and trade with the PvP.
Et là ils disent que il y a
there might have been some we can't hear it though, but there might have been some rumblings and some indication that
le shop entre joueurs et tu peux aussi échanger directement.
We do have a known bug in the game where the spice color disappears from the sand.
It's still there.
But so it's happening.
Well,
there he is.
That's why they
there's the
we can actually
one.
Hear that.
That's shy.
It was great seeing the little sandworm.
The little tiny one on the side. You can see the scale.
Little baby like getting into the action there.
This is the ring mouth.
Ils ont arrêté de miner parce qu'il y a des signes qui ont montré qu'il y avait
everything that's in the middle. They're like just everything there is lost.
It takes a lot. But these guys managed to succeed and they can take their haul out of the Deep Desert today with them.
Very well prepared.
Yeah, they were well prepared.
Very well prepared. So as our crew here is now going back to... Actually, maybe we can explore a little bit because we do actually have Imperial testing stations here as well. And I think we're actually somewhat close to one, if I remember correctly. So we can maybe show that from above as well. Again, to just bring it in that there is a lot of content in the Deep Desert that is not just like flat out PvP, right? So we really want to...
Correct. And this is our high-end PvE encounters happen in the Deep Desert. So the eco labs or ecological testing stations, they're actually tuned for 4 players. So it's the main PvE challenge would be out here where you're going to get those unique schematics that we were talking about earlier. But you need to scout, you need to find them, and then you need to perhaps fight over them.
And work
Alors là,
as
ils
a
vont
team.
montrer peut-être un donjon endgame.
Minimum 4 people.
We actually showed one
être fait à 4.
in our combat stream.
Second part.
Ils ont déjà montré un peu dans le stream d'avant.
Kind of wave-based, kind of very different approach than the Imperial testing stations that we have in Haga Basin.
And they're different every week.
It's the entrance to Colony Station. And like as the game continues, as we go through live and we continue to update and expand, there'll be more things that show up on the map, for example, Fremen Seaches and things like that
plus le jeu
people
va
expect to explore. So things will be uncovered.
Évoluer dans le temps,
as I
ils vont
mentioned,
rajouter
like
des
the layouts
trucs,
for the Deep Desert, they're handcrafted. We have a cool system where we like build the layouts by hand, and generate the spaces between them with the sand. So it's kind of like we fill in the gaps with the sand. But like we are building new layouts for this all the time, right? And then over time we'll incorporate more and more elements. So there'll be always something to do. That's the pillar of the game, infinite exploration.
Et
right?
voilà,
And that's one of the
petit à petit, ils vont
goals, is to
rajouter des
create a
choses pour qu'il y ait
space
toujours quelque chose
that's
à faire.
always
C'est le
explorable.
pilier du jeu, c'est une
Something else
exploration
I'd like to say
illimitée.
that I think is like important is we will add, like we have the DLCs and things coming for the game. We'll be adding things in the DLCs, but the deep desert will always remain something that we consider to be at the zenith of the power curve in the game. So we'll keep adding to the deep desert. So let's say that we have tier 5 items in the game and we go to tier 7, then the deep desert will start to have tier 7 equipment and items and things in it as well.
Il dit bon, il y aura des DLC dans lesquels ils vont ajouter des choses, mais ils vont aussi continuer à ajouter des trucs sur tout le temps sur le deep desert.
Continually explorable space.
Par exemple, si d'un coup ils disent bon bah il y a du tier 7,
and there will be like in DLCs there'll be places
il y
where
aura
people
du
can
tier
get
7
access to
dans
gear
le
that
deep
is
desert.
currently in the deep desert, right? When we do that, we'll also increase the deep desert and make sure that there's more things. So that's kind of the long-term goal is to continue updating the game and continue adding this stuff.
Exactly.
C'est le but à long terme, c'est d'ajouter plein de choses.
So while we actually have our team, or actually the spice harvesters, go back to on the way to the quartermaster to deploy, or like to kind of
harvest the spice. Yeah.
Give him the spice, basically. Yeah, give him the spice for the launch rod thing.
Refine.
We do have an additional asset. We have actually a video from a stress test that we did with the beta last week on Friday, where we see a lot of things happening.
Shout out to the beta players.
Yes, thank you, beta players. Fantastic work on that side as well. So here, that's actually a glimpse at the stress test that we did. That's also deep desert. Lots of people together in the deep desert.
Donc là, ils ont essayé de faire un stress test en amenant plein de gens au même endroit pour voir si ça allait lag.
Yeah, we were spawning. They were spawning thopters like crazy. Someone's flamethrowing, throwing bombs. Players never behave when you put them in the same space.
If I remember, that's actually Camille with the flamethrower. Not Camille, sorry, Ignacy. I mean, that was Ignacy.
The context of the stress test, by the way, was like we were
testing
c'est
stable, hein.
people crossing
Il y a
the
du
server
monde,
boundaries with our
Ouais, là, il
y a
beaucoup d'objets aussi.
And fighting along the server boundaries just to see how the performance was. So you'll see people firing rockets, and yeah, it was a cool
Après,
test.
faut voir que c'est dans leur serveur.
We got a lot of very useful data out of
bêta
this.
fermée.
And seeing how people were fighting together.
Also, shout out to our automation team, because they every build, right? We have the deep desert, and they have basically they deploy our automation system called Legion, and it goes and it tests all of these things, right? So it's got hundreds of ornithopters going back and forth between all the zone boundaries.
Shout out à la team d'animateurs.
There's a lot of testing that goes into a project like this. It's insane.
Yes,
and the more sandboxy you get, the more things can break, and that's
obviously the more freedom we also give to players, the more things can break. And like
Là, ils commencent déjà à se blinder parce qu'ils savent qu'il y aura des bugs et ils disent bon bah forcément plus on va ajouter des trucs, plus ça va sûrement casser des choses.
I think what we at Funcom really love to do is we love to create worlds where players can write their own stories and can tell their own stories, right? I think that's such a different approach to
Et le but, en fait, aussi avec Funcom, ce qu'ils aiment bien, c'est créer des mondes dans lesquels les gens peuvent créer leur propre histoire.
Like the deep desert are really important because it does spawn these memorable moments that you remember, that you go experience with your friends or your guild.
Franchement, ça a l'air
you make
incroyable.
friends, you make enemies, and that's really important to like fully experience the politics and intrigue of Dune.
100%.
The power of multiplayer, right?
Exactly.
Yes, like I remember, like we had a lot of really cool, before we go back to actually delivering the spice, we had actually a lot of really cool moments from streamers and players and YouTube content creators about the beta weekend or from the beta weekend. And I remember one moment, I call it the GTA moment, where one of the streamers, I think, he was harvesting something or something.
Yeah.
Oh no, he was downed.
He was downed by an enemy.
He was downed but not out.
Yeah.
And then the other one comes in and just drives over the enemy that was like targeting him, and he couldn't stop laughing. It's like these little moments that make
Là, il parle
that create
des
those stories
streamers
that
qui ont
are
fait
so
des
fun to share as well and are unique to
clips et
you
des
then,
trucs comme ça
it's
pendant la
like-
bêta.
And that is, I think,
Elle a bien aimé
where
un
for
clip où il y a un
me,
gars, il était down.
that satisfaction of really
Et il y a
creating
un
those
autre
works.
type, il est
Yeah,
arrivé,
I think, and
il a
I
roulé
think it's
sur
one of
le...
the things like we get a bit of
sur l'ennemi qui allait
a
le
bit
tuer.
of- I mean, it's fine. Like we
Elle
get
appelait ça
feedback
le-
like, oh, jank, right? Like,
GTA.
being able to stand on top of an ornithopter is janky. It is, but when they asked me if we should remove that, I said no.
No.
Surfing on an ornithopter is actually
This is very cool.
why isn't that
ça,
cool?
c'est-
Like,
ça,
why isn't
ça,
that
c'est
something
une
we
bonne
want? So like
mentalité, j'aime
sometimes,
bien.
yeah, we make those choices as well.
Il dit
Like,
bon,
it's like, yeah, this might
on a
look a
vu qu'il y
little
avait
weird
le
sometimes,
bug
but
entre
you know
guillemets
what?
où
It's
on
way
pouvait
more
ride
fun when you can do it.
l'ornithoptère.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's way more fun when
C'est
you
un
can do it.
peu,
The meta
c'est un peu
on
bugué, mais
Dune might have been, you
ils lui
know,
ont demandé si on
surfing
devait,
on
s'il devait l'enlever. Il a dit bah non.
people with
c'est-
assault
A little bit of that
rifles.
might be
Yeah.
fixed now. We fixed some of the assault rifle issues.
All right, so let's go back into delivering the spice now. Oh, actually, no. Let's talk a little more. I actually wanted to ask you both a question. You actually have answered that recently in an interview, but that's not the reason I'm asking because I plan to do it anyway. It's like, what is each of you's favorite thing in the game? I mean, you
Alors,
mentioned a
elle
few
veut
things
leur
that we
poser une
saw,
question.
like
Qu'est-ce que
the
c'est
transport
votre
and stuff,
truc
but I'm pretty
préféré
sure
dans le
there's
jeu?
other things that you're particularly proud of.
Ou alors quelque chose dont vous êtes
So,
vraiment fier.
survival games for me, one of the best things they do is they make the world more interactable than other genres, right? So I think the team has done a great job of like using the harvesting system. Not only does the cut array like cut up the resources and get it, but you come across these like wrecked ornithopters, and every time I come across one and I'm cutting off the wings and getting the resources from it, it just feels great, right? Because it makes the game grounded. So I would say that whole entire system there is really unique with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Il dit
for
qu'il
me,
aime bien le
it's-
système pour
I
miner
think
les
I'm thinking
choses.
about the one that I mentioned in the interview as well, probably, but like the Dew Reaper and the way that you, because I like. Look, I made Conan. We made Conan, and Conan's a bit more stock standard in the survival sense, right? You're chopping down trees and you're harvesting rocks. And when it came to Dune, we had the design principle of like make your designs fit Dune, do not make Dune fit your designs. And it was like, what is harvesting water look like in Dune? And there's a line in the book where Duke Leto is looking out a window and the sun's rising and there's all these people out in the fields harvesting dew off the flowers, and you're like, that's how precious water is on this planet. And that's a moment that our game needs to have. And so it isn't just like the confluence, it's like, yeah, it's cool, this action of like sweeping the dew off the top of plants using this little Holtzman field that drains the water up into, and like, not only did the animation team and the effects team nail that, and the audio team got the, like, all of that works, but it's also like the back end, the time of day, checking when the dew harvest time is optimal.
Mais en gros, il dit qu'il a bien aimé créer le système où
to be out there,
on peut
like,
récupérer les
10 minutes before the sun comes up, and you're filling just liter johns full of water because you understood the game system and you understood the timing. All of those things come together to create an experience that I think for me it's just like, you can't have this experience in any game except Dune. And to me that's the most precious thing, right? Like I feel like it's so good when all those things come together. Like as a developer, that's just the most rewarding stuff, right? And it feels good. And I don't really care if anyone else likes it because I love it so much. No, because I think it really nails it, right? Like I can't speak more highly of how cool that works, right? And shout out to the team who worked on it and everybody who did their part.
No, I get that.
Because games are made by teams, right? That's the other thing.
Yes, absolutely. So we actually made it now to the quartermaster, and we are.
So we're going to deliver
the
spice.
Yes.
Try to win the Lensrad. Okay. So
these
guys ask you, so you, because you're sort of you're a minor house or a minor house under the umbrella of the Atreides, you deliver Lensrad bribes to the quartermasters of the Atreides, and they make sure they get where they're supposed to go. So now we're delivering for House Alexan, we're delivering spice. And the House Alexan are a part of the manufacturing unit, which is where they... And so we're delivering 500 spice melange, and then they're going to make sure that it reaches them. And then that will, in a moment, change the Lensrad. So you can see how you have an impact now. So Lensrad is there under the social tab. This board refreshes every so often. So it's been a few seconds since the last refresh. Now we should be able to see our borders refresh with a certain amount of spice. Oh, we didn't go to Alexin. You're on the wrong one. You need to go to Alexin. It's in the middle.
The middle.
Yes, and then we can see that we've delivered some spice, and the goal amount has gone up. So that you can see that we've increased our goal amount with House Alexin there.
So we've worked towards.
Yes.
Gaining
So we haven't worked like once we hit 70,000 points, and we can do any of these activities to earn points.
Ils ont rempli une
the
petite
control
partie
point,
de
we can,
cette activité.
yeah, we can deliver spice melange. But once we've done enough to earn that center square, then it'll flip to be Atreides and say that we've claimed it for the week.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
great. Nice. So that was a little bit of a glimpse of what mid and end game can look like. Obviously, that totally depends on what you like to play and how you like to play. There's quite a lot of options. We showed you a few of them, an approach of what can be done.
We're also jamming like dozens of hours of gameplay into like a very quick presentation.
Yes, 100%. Like this is very like preparation is everything, which is of course true for the game specifically as well. But before we dive into the Q&A, we are gonna take a quick look at the mentats.
Et juste avant qu'on parle de la FAQ, on va regarder un peu l'arbre des mentats. Je sais pas comment le traduire en français, mais...
So then, you're not quite dead.
Great plot.
Ah. C'était bizarre là ce qui s'est passé.
Developed out of the need to replace thinking machines, the mentats, trained on the principles of philosopher Gilbertus Albans, became one of the most important people in the Imperium. Able to calculate immense amounts of data and devise complex strategies,
Bon, ça c'est déjà sur YouTube.
On the battlefield, combined with advanced assassination and combat technology, you will be able to think many steps ahead of your enemies. With a significantly higher cognition, as a mentat, you can calculate trajectories and weapon handling to find weak points in an opponent's defense, or even guide the calculations of an external sentinel turret to assist you with extra firepower. Focusing on strategic control over raw strength, a mentat is an expert in assassination technology, using poison capsules to trap enemies in a cloud of death, or when out of sight, send in a hunter-seeker before the enemy has even noticed your presence. For a tactical advantage, the mentats have devised further development of Imperial technology, such as the shield wall for extra protection. And to fool simple-minded enemies, a projection of yourself will confuse and scatter their focus. Throughout the dunes of Arrakis, any school can be trained and improved by masters, increasing your mental capacity and further advancing your tactical technology will let you hold the strategic advantage in any situation. But to reach the highest tactical operation,
et comme à chaque fois dans ces vidéos ils disent, il vaut mieux mixer tous les arbres.
Focus your mind and calculate each step forward to find the optimal probability for your survival on Arrakis.
Calculer toutes les probabilités sur la meilleure survie possible. Sur Arrakis. La voix qui fait ça, elle est pas mal.
All right, and we are back for our Q&A. So our wizards behind the screens and behind the cameras are gonna throw up questions that have been collected. They're ready now. I was the Smithfield. Fantastic.
Before anybody asks any questions, though, I just want to make a reveal of my own. Nice. Special toe shoes today for everybody's.
They look really cool.
But
it also looks a bit like Hobbit, to be fair. Like, at least close up, chat. So it's good you have a little bit of a... it's good you don't have
not
close-ups.
for all the money in the world.
From what I understand, they're very healthy though. They're way better for you than actual normal shoes. So
yep.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
I started wearing them 10 years ago and I'm still fat, so I don't know. Maybe
super healthy.
Maybe they're not working out.
Yeah.
Well, your feet are very healthy.
My feet are massively healthy. Sorry, all right. Enough distraction. I apologize.
No, you don't have to.
The toe reveal was important.
You don't have to. We wouldn't want you any other way, Joel. All right. Rui's probably going to kill me now.
Yeah.
All right.
We want him every other
Il fait
way.
des blagues sur ses orteils.
Every other way. No. It's all good. Like it's also you guys make a really nice. You complement each other really well.
I've got pants. He doesn't have pants.
Exactly. He has toe shoes. You actually wear socks as well. So it's just like it's a whole balance thing. It's
great. Yeah.
All right. All right. While we still wait on the questions, they're still collecting some of them.
Nobody has
give
any
them a little
questions.
bit of maybe no one has
We've
questions.
answered every possible question people could have is fully answered.
Wish. Like that's kind of both the blessings and the blessing and the challenge of Dune Awakening. I think is just it has so many aspects of different games. That we really tried to put together and have people try and understand.
Were you there when I was like presenting to the press about the game, and I was calling Funcom morons for taking
yes, of course I was there.
Yeah.
I was expecting headlines. We didn't get a single headlines.
Yes.
We didn't get a single headlines like that.
Yeah.
Funcoms are morons.
Well,
Chief Creative Director says.
Well, we are like we keep trying to, like it's one of the things that I love about working here. Is like they let me do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They let me try and do weird shit.
Il y a un truc que j'ai adoré en travaillant ici.
You could work somewhere where you're doing the same game every year.
Faire des
speaking of reskins, like and you're making the exact same thing and you're within this box and it's like and like I do like that we're allowed to push beyond those things, right? And try harder to do something different. And yeah, it comes with a little bit of jank, but man, it's I don't know.
Laisser la possibilité.
I agree, though. I think one thing you can't say about us is that we like it easy.
No, exactly. We're morons. We make it hard for ourselves.
Ce qui est difficile avec Dune, pour expliquer le genre de Dune, c'est parce qu'ils ont mixé vraiment plein de styles.
And sometimes it means that we make divisive decisions, but I think that's what was great about the beta, right? It's like people got to see what the true experience was. Oh, and here is...
Exactly. So we're ready actually for the questions. So is that Lopil 125? Is the exchange global or per server?
It is per world. So the world is what we call a container of all the Haga Basin that you will play and interact with.
Comment ça s'appelle le
there are hundreds of
truc
worlds,
pour trade là
so it is not global.
Yeah, it is one deep desert per world, two social hubs per world, and then many Haga Basins per world, and that is what we call a world. And yeah, as Scott says, at launch there are hundreds of worlds to choose from, right? And within each world there's many Haga Basins to choose from.
Ah.
Yep.
All right.
Compris.
Au lancement, il y aura des centaines de monde
sur les... Are the map dungeons instant per player? Can you do them as a group, or are they open like the social hubs?
The answer is that they are not instance for a group. They are per player, and they are not open like the social hubs.
They are instanced, though.
Yes, they are
to a limit. So several people in the same world can be doing the same, like the water fat mansion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are kind of our only instant content in that way, that sense.
Yep. Correct.
Charlie Fox.
Alors là, faudrait que je revoie le passage parce que j'ai pas exactement compris.
How do the different circuits work?
They basically isolate resources so that they can only be used if they're on that circuit.
En gros, les circuits sont isolés.
It's a little bit hard in the UI, but you can set like a machine's input and output circuit that way, and so that's kind of the extent with it.
Like draw from this storage,
une sortie,
deliver to this storage when you're finished, right? Like and that's
basically
une entrée.
This group of connected items.
Yeah, exactly. And you can set a certain number of storages per circuit.
Sur les coffres et sur les tables de craft.
Yes, that's basically it.
Kriegsdrachen asks, how will they ensure balance between Harkonnen and Atreides?
There are systems. I think I talked about this.
You just mentioned as well as like we have, but you didn't want to spoil it, which we shouldn't. Exactly.
And then when we introduce a third faction, which we are planning to, it will also have a role in that balance. But that's basically what I can say right now. But ensure is very hard. Like it's very hard to like be 100% certain because, when you give players choice, they choose. And so you can't guarantee that it's going to be 100%, not 100% people on a trade on a world. But I think we have pretty good systems in place to make sure that at least feels like it balances itself out pretty well.
Yes, and the deep desert is not Atreides versus Harkonnen.
Yes.
It is every person for themselves, right? So even if Harkonnen are kind of dominating a server or they're 60-40, they're going to be fighting themselves
Yes.
in the deep desert as well.
And that's actually something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Landsrad. Like the Landsrad, you can see the different within the
guilds.
factions who the top guilds are and who contributed the most. Because a part of the Dune thing is that like it isn't that like everybody in Atreides is a monolith. It's actually like people want the Duke's attention.
Mais en fait, même dans
so
le
they
deep
want him further
désert,
up. And the same with the Harkonnen.
pour le
right? Like,
Landsrad, des
I want the
fois,
Baron to
si t'es
you know,
Harkonnen, tu vas
witness
te battre
me,
contre
so
d'autres
I'm trying to
Harkonnen.
get to the top of the list of guilds. So there should be inter-guild competition even within the factions. So
Aussi
they
parce que
overall are
on
working
voit les
towards the
top
common
guilds qui
goal of the
contribuent, mais il y aura
Landsrad.
aussi une
But they're trying to
compétition
beat each other to be the
dans les
best of the
factions
Landsrad, so they have the most voting power, they
pour
get the
être
rewards.
la meilleure,
Yeah, especially also because
la meilleure guilde.
like one Atreides guild might be focused on PvP, the other one might be super opposed to PvP.
Yep.
So they definitely don't want the PvP guild to like get, oh, we want full PvP. So
Yes.
they will, you know, work against them and like,
Yes.
oh, we want to be top because we want to have more say in which decree we're actually going to have next week.
Yeah, like exactly.
So-
a crafting guild's going to want the crafting decrees.
Exactly,
And
yes.
they're not going to want the PvP full loot decree.
Parce
right?
que,
Exactly.
There's going to be
Yes.
that kind of
Par exemple,
competition, even within the factions.
Yes, exactly.
les guildes
So,
full
yep,
PvP, elles
good
vont
question.
vouloir voter
Cypher asks,
un décret
can our bases
pour le
get
PvP,
raided?
alors
So
que
not in Hoggy
PvE
Basin.
pour PvE.
They will be safe in Hoggy Basin. In the deep deserts, it's a bit different.
Yeah,
Est-ce qu'il y aura du raid de
in
base
the PvE section of the deep desert? No.
Dans le PvE, non.
But in the PvP section of the deep desert, there is a mechanism
Et dans le PvP,
by
il y
which
a un
bases have a
mécanisme.
vulnerability window where they can be raided. It is a very
Où,
short
les bases
vulnerability
ont
window. And again, I would
Une
point to
fenêtre
the
de
lore
vulnérabilité
of
qui
the
est très
Dune
courte.
universe. So I'm sorry for everybody who hasn't read the books and doesn't know
Mais lisez
a
le
way
livre
in which
si vous
shields
voulez
can go
savoir
down for a brief
comment
period of time. But it is worth looking into because then you'll understand exactly how the mechanics can work. And I know I'm being needlessly cryptic, but I'm sure there's people spamming in the chat about it already.
Let them figure it out. Altman Alchemist, if I don't take the mission to talk with House Atreides or Harkonnen, will I be content locked as far
Si
as
je prends pas la
will I be
mission,
content locked as far as processing?
pour choisir entre
Progressing,
Atreides et
sorry.
Harkonnen,
No, that's
The
fine.
main story and the ability to craft.
est-ce que le contenu sera bloqué?
Yeah, no. The story, I mean, while it involves House Atreides and the Harkonnen, it is not about that. It's about you and your role on Dune.
It's your quest to find the
Non,
Fremen.
le
Exactly,
contenu sera
right.
pas bloqué.
So the main story follows that. What we were talking about and what we were showing earlier with the different faction unlocks, like in terms of the visuals and those
Enfin, en tout
things,
cas, le
you're
contenu
locked
de
out
la-
of if you don't want to join a faction.
Those
You
are
can't get,
pure vanity.
but they're pure vanity, right?
No mechanics.
But yeah, you can't. But one thing you cannot join the Landsrad unless you have aligned yourself with a faction. Your guild must be aligned with a faction to participate in the Landsrad. That is the one hard requirement that I think faction alignment has in the game.
Et en gros,
That's
si
it.
tu pars,
Otherwise,
si
yeah,
tu
you
prends
can
pas de
do
faction,
all the
par contre, tu peux
content
pas
without joining
participer au
Atreides
Landsrad.
or Harkonnen.
I also think when it comes to progressing,
Et pareil pour les guides.
in the beta, during the beta weekend, you were still very much in the tutorialization part of the game,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I know that some players were like, "Whoa, this is very linear" and things. But the thing is, things open up quite more once you're past that tutorialization section as well. So you won't be actually locked progressing when it comes to crafting or where you spend your points.
Yeah, and in the opening,
Intel points specifically.
in the opening of the game, after character creation, you actually get a choice as to whether you want to play with an unlocked tech tree or a locked tech tree.
Alors là,
The
il parle quand tu
reason we
crées ton
put that
personnage,
there is so that people who are advanced survival
choisir
players or
soit,
people who've played Dune before can just
d'avoir les
go,
recettes
okay, I want the unlocked tech
débloquées
tree,
ou-
I know what I'm
ou
doing.
bloquées.
But I recommend, and we recommend, that the locked tech tree is for people who are playing the game for the first time and really, like, because
Et
there
recommande pour
are
les gens
so
qui
many,
jouent pour la première
we've been
fois de
talking about it
jouer
a
en
lot
mode
today.
bloqué.
There are so many mechanics that are just kind of Dune mechanics that we want people to learn, and we need to teach them. And it's going to be hard for you to know what to do.
Parce que
Like you don't know about dew reaping and times
si
of
tu
day
prends le
when you
mode
should be out
débloqué,
harvesting
tu
dew
peux
unless you follow the tutorials that we
pas vraiment faire les
put in
choses dans
place for that,
l'ordre, et
right?
du coup,
So
ça va être plus
it's
galère.
just that.
Or that you need to go to shipwrecks to craft better weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Est-ce qu'il y a un
Cooper is
level
asking,
max
is there a level cap
Yes.
Ah
I
oui.
believe we're at 200
Niveau 200.
currently?
currently.
But you can respec.
Yeah. Actuellement.
So it's, I believe it's on a
Donc tu
48
peux
hour.
respec. Ouais, si
cycle.
elle précise
So
actuellement, c'est qu'ils
even
finiront
if
par
you
le
tap out and you
monter.
play something and you decide you don't like it, you can
Yeah.
switch to something else.
And there's a point where you run out of, like, you stop getting unlock points for your tech tree, intel points. And then we have a mechanic in the game for you to go around and unlock more intel points by going to bases in the world, like enemy bases and outposts. So there's a level cap that puts a stop to some of those progression things, and then the next step from there is for you to go and explore more.
À un certain level, tu gagnes plus de points d'intel là qui permettent de débloquer les crafts.
Exactly. Also, like, I mean, there's
Et donc ça te force à aller dans le monde et à explorer pour
character level, you have skill points and you have intel points. So
faire les bases des PNJ, prendre
tout.
Exactly.
K69N is asking, is it possible to lose all your gear?
Est-ce que c'est possible de perdre tout ton
So not in PvP,
ton équipement
in the base
PvP.
level. In the deep desert, you lose resources that you're carrying, Solari and Spice, and you take durability damage to some of your gear. Right, that's what happens every time you die, PvE or PvP.
En PvP Deep Desert, si tu meurs, tu perds.
There's a specific decree from the Landsrad,
tu perds ce que tu as sur toi,
full loot PvP
l'argent,
in the deep desert for 1
les
week,
épices et tout ce que tu as dans ton
that's
sac.
the only time
Mais pas
in the
ton
game
armure,
where you
etc.
can lose all your gear in PvP.
Mais le seul moment où tu peux perdre tout ce que tu as en
PvP
sur toi.
Yeah, sure.
Soit si le branche, soit si le décret
full PvP, really? It's more like PvE, but yes, 100%.
Wolfie 1974. Are we going to be able to get blueprints that devs made of their bases?
Oh, the Tour Eagle present.
Est-ce qu'on pourra avoir des blueprints des devs?
That's actually very cool. I love that idea. That's actually a very cool idea.
Maybe we can fill up some vendors post-launch with some of our
I was just about to say I don't think players should actually pay for them per se, but we should, or maybe they need to. I don't know.
You don't want copies of my bases.
I mean, you shouldn't. No, actually, let me rephrase that. We shouldn't have a dev sell those items in game, but we can sell it via NPC.
Sure,
That's what I meant, right?
Maybe we can put a vendor or something.
That'd be cool. Yeah, like
maybe a vendor in the world can sell some blueprints.
You see, like,
peut-être rajouter un vendeur.
Toreil's the builder among us. Mine would just be no one wants
boxes.
No one wants to see my. I'm the guy who tests
les bases
TTP every time.
Yes.
So,
I'm sure we're gonna have players who make fantastic.
Et les deux devs qui sont là, ils disent non, vous voulez pas nos bases.
Quintinovich is asking, will GeForce now be in Dune Awakening?
I believe so.
Yes.
Est-ce qu'il y aura
There's discussions
dans Dune Awakening?
Can't remember what the last.
Genre quelqu'un a posé cette question.
Looking at it. Yeah.
I don't have Slack open, otherwise you could check.
GeForce
Someone
now
is
is
like
the
hammering
streaming
messages
service, right?
to me online.
So the question, I guess, would be, will Dune Awakening be on GeForce now for streaming?
Yes, that's what I interpreted.
I don't know the answer. I'm sorry, but Scott.
Yeah, I don't think I have an official answer, but I believe so.
Ah bah non, c'est peut-être pas scripté.
Helping Hands, how do you balance the council wins? If one side gets unique weapons, won't that side have a better chance to win the next vote down the line?
Not necessarily, because the tasks for the Landsrad are pulled from, so there's 25 tasks per week, and there's a pool of 400 tasks that can potentially show up. So you, first of all, don't necessarily know what's going to be there.
La victoire au
actually
conseil
influence everything. Some of the tasks are kill tasks. You don't know which tasks are going to be revealed first. You also have to bribe Landsrad envoys with spice to reveal tasks. And if your faction does it before the other faction, you'll see, okay, we need to do this. So you might just get ahead because you had more spice or whatever. It's not going to come down to unique weapons. Absolutely not. That's not going to be the thing that.
Si un côté gagne et a des armes uniques, est-ce que ce côté va pas avoir un avantage pour la semaine d'après?
The best way to answer
il y a plein de tâches
I think that's a great
différentes
answer too, and I think it just goes again into people are a bit too afraid that everything is about PvP and fighting endgame, and that's absolutely not the case. And hopefully we explained that a little bit today as well for people to feel a bit more relaxed about that, or disappointed depending. Dr. Evil Eye, is there any content or materials that are hidden behind PvP, meaning that the only way to obtain that item gear material is to risk
caché derrière le PvP?
I wouldn't say hidden, but like you can. The deep desert, which we just explained, is a place where tier 6 gear is, like items and materials for crafting those things. You need to go there to get those things. You can buy them off the exchange. You can trade for them with other people.
Et d'aller dans le deep desert et risquer de.
You have to go to that place in order to get those things, and there is a risk of people attacking you when you're in that place. We tried to explain that this is a very large place. It's not going to be possible for a guild to cover the entire space. It's just not going to be possible.
Yeah. I think guild limit's 32.
The guild limit is 32 people.
Yeah. So 1 per kilometer, maybe, if they stretch across.
Yeah, they'd have to stretch all the way across. And even then, I think there's all kinds of tactics and ways to draw them off. And I don't think it's going to be a problem.
There are potentially hundreds and hundreds of people that can be in the deep desert, right? So 1 guild would be outnumbered by 100 people.
again, if you want to rat, you can rat.
Yeah,
like there's options, right?
And also, like the tier 6 gear isn't required for the story or for anything that's having to do with like a basin, right? It's sort of just the deep desert loop.
But we can't tell people that they can't get to the top number go up because they really people always want that. So so it's
there are other ways to get it.
Even though it's not required, you I know people are going to want it.
I feel like it makes sense though because those people who really care about the highest level tier are probably the PvPers and they want to be in the deep desert in the first place. So I feel like it's kind of a natural balance there too.
Hopefully we also have like, I think
En plus, il n'y a pas besoin des...
I speak to a lot of people in our closed beta and our
du stuff in-game
and
pour
I see that,
faire
like,
l'histoire
there's
ou autre.
people who kind of
Donc ça va sûrement être
assume
les
that
joueurs
everybody
PvP
who
entre eux qui
is a
vont se
guild in
battre pour le
PvP is
stuff
going to be
in-game.
this toxic, sweaty kind of, and I think it's going to be the opposite. I think we're going to have the good guy guilds who are out there actually.
Il dit c'est sûr ça va être toxique.
And like helping people out. I've seen it in the beta already. People, I got lost in the desert. Help, and people would come and help them, give them rides home, like give them more gear. I've seen people in the beta like just give other people an ornithopter when they lost one because of a bug that was in the game from our end. They're like, oh, do you want an ornithopter? I have a spare one, right? That's it's great to see. And I think that people worry too much about toxicity. Hopefully, we'll keep track of it, of course, but it should be fine.
And you have one player for the entire world, right?
Yeah.
So and you are your name, right? So you will have some sort of reputation.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well.
Yeah, as a callback to more old school MMOs that I grew up with, like EverQuest and all those. But anyway, so we have 2 more questions. Fort Team is asking, do you need a sync chart for each person in your guild?
Yes. You need to create a sync chart for every person who's going to want to reveal those things that you've got in your sync chart.
They're single-use items.
Yeah, they're single-use items, consumables.
Est-ce qu'il y a besoin d'une carte pour chaque personne de la
last
guilde?
questions. Oui. Neo Valkyrion, can transport ornithopters carry other ornithopters?
Yes, they can.
They can indeed.
Est-ce que les ornithoptères de transport
I was flying around carrying a medium ornithopter with
they
my
can pick up pretty much anything.
Porter d'autres...
And again, they have
anything
passengers
vehicular.
too.
Yes, vehicular. Can't pick up people.
No.
Unless they're
inside.
They're sitting inside a vehicle. All right. So that was it with the questions for today and also for our last developer stream before Head Start and the official
c'était les
release.
dernières questions.
I'm like still like how okay.
Et aussi
so
le dernier live.
How do you boys feel, gents? How do you feel?
Go Scott.
Pretty good, right?
Pretty
so beta went really well from our perspective. The tech was stable, and that's what we're always worried about. Because we knew the game was pretty good, or we thought the game was really good, right? Yeah. And all the tests we had run showed that, but we were a little fearful, that tech would hold, and it went really, really well with the closed-ish beta, right? The weekend, the server crash rate was low, the client crash rate was within our acceptable tolerance, and we're fixing most of the issues that we found. So. Cautiously optimistic, right? Incredibly excited to show the entire.
Et là, elle leur a demandé est-ce que vous pensez que le lancement va bien se passer.
The last week is always.
Il a dit j'espère par rapport à la bêta, ça a plutôt bien tenu.
It's 5 years of your life.
Alors je suis.
Right, and it's like I think that's the thing that I think
modérément optimiste et il espère que ça va bien se passer.
What?
Et je lui dit
I'm not sure people understand.
Ça fait quand même 5 ans qu'on fait le jeu.
And breathing this kind of thing for 5 years. And then, like, you see the game industry is volatile. Things don't go well for people. We have a team of, that I love to work with. We have a team of great people that we've built over the last years. And it's like it isn't about like success in the sense of like, I just want to say that like it is a game that I think is great.
Il travaille avec des gens qu'ils aiment.
I kind of know that it has a lot going on, right? And I think it works well. And from the beta, we got some confirmation of that.
Le jeu est bien aussi.
But I want my team to be together making games for a long time, right? So for me, this is like it's.
Et c'est pas vraiment une question
the game industry is not it's not a safe place anymore, right? It's not easy to guess what's going to be successful. I mean, I'm watching things and like you see things that are fantastic from small teams going great. Like, and there's been some fantastic games this year and games that you wouldn't have predicted coming out of nowhere. Like Schedule 1 is a great one, but also like Clair Obscura, I'd heard of it, but I hadn't heard of it until really it blew up. And so you see these games, these huge successes. So I think it's like, you don't want to have the arrogance to think that you could be among that, but you hope. And that's kind of where I'm at least. I'm hoping we strike a vibe. I'm hoping that all the decisions that we make, and there's 10,000 decisions on a game project.
Jeu, ça va être
right? There's 10,000 decisions.
Il espère
and every one of them is about moving towards a goal, right? Towards a vision, a creative vision, a vision of a universe, a vision that a guy created in 1963 when he wrote a book.
De ce jeu va marcher.
Right? And that's, I don't know, like I'm extremely nervous, but that's what we're trying to get to, right? And that's, I hope, what people feel when they play the game is,
il a un peu peur, mais
right? Like that's what we want.
J'espère que les gens vont aimer.
I feel like we've made an amazing Dune game, right? Yeah. And it's the first where you're walking right on Arrakis, you're experiencing Paul's journey.
We're skipping 2001's
Sure. But for me, right, in a modern sense anyway. So it's
là, ils disent que
we have
ils pensent qu'ils ont fait un super
we
jeu.
want to tell. People saw
Dune.
a really short glimpse of it in the beta, but there's so much more. Going through
Et
the rest of
dans la bêta, on a
Act
vu un petit morceau, mais en fait, il y a beaucoup de choses à
and
découvrir.
there's this long story that we want to tell over the, like you said, 10 years, right? On
Yes.
the
Et en
thing,
plus,
so
c'est
so
10
we have a
longue
long
histoire à
story.
raconter dans peut-être sur 10
we
ans.
want to continue releasing updates every 3-4 months with additions
les
to that story, in
3 ou 4
addition
mois.
to the DLCs that we're going to
En plus,
come
avec,
out. So
il va
when
y
you
avoir
buy
des
the game,
DLC.
you're getting everything here right now, plus all the story content that we'll continue to release over the next years. So yeah,
Et
we're
aussi,
excited.
ils vont continuer à ajouter
It's a lot of pressure, but
des morceaux d'histoire dans les
There's no
prochaines années.
guarantees in Love and War, but you know what? I'll say this for the record. I'm really proud of our team and what they've done. And like,
Pour la
no matter what
postérité,
happens,
je vais dire ça, je
all
suis
of
très
them can
fier
hold their heads up high because they have worked really hard to bring this to fruition.
Absolutely, shout out to our
qu'il
teams, the many teams that work on this game with all different departments.
Every department.
And absolutely, it's a beast of a game. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
And
Big shout out à toutes les équipes qui ont travaillé dessus.
I'm actually getting goosebumps. I'm sorry. Such a yeah, anyway. But I think that's a wonderful note to end this, again, last developer stream.
Yeah.
Yep.
On for before Head Start and release. One thing we can actually say is that you will be able to upgrade your editions on the 10th of January. So there will be an option.
10th of June.
10th of, sorry, June. Oh my
il y a
God.
un autre truc qu'ils peuvent dire, c'est qu'on va pouvoir augmenter notre édition du jeu le 10 juin. Donc si vous aviez acheté la...
Yes, so 10th of
plus c'est
June,
quoi, Deluxe ou...
when the game goes into full release, you will be able to upgrade your editions. Should you want to do that, there will be options on Steam. And
voilà, on pourra prendre l'édition du
thank you
dessus.
so much again, Scott and Joel, for being here during out of your busy schedule. So we really appreciate it, talking to us. And we'll have a last trailer. And with that, I thank everyone for watching. And
Merci à tout le monde d'avoir regardé.
Hopefully, you'll enjoy.
Un dernier, voici un dernier trailer. Des bisous.
Cheers.
Et des bisous. Merci à tous. Ça c'est un trailer qu'on a déjà vu. C'est la première mission.
You're not quite dead.
Great plots are afoot in the Imperium. And the currents of intrigue run deeply. You will go to Arrakis as our agent. You have one task. Find the Fremen. Wake the sleeper.
You were sighted fleeing the scene of a terrible crash. Who are you?
You've heard the expression, the spice must flow. I am the man who ensures that it continues to do so.
I dreamed of you. Burst in fire. Twin comets in the sky. The seer of lies. I am terrified of what happens when you awaken.
We've all lost our way. You can complete the mission.
Voilà, ils nous ont tout spoil.
Every person carries their past with them. Who are you?
Mais ça, ils nous avaient montré déjà beaucoup de parties de ce truc-là. Large Scale Beta Weekend en mai, n'hésitez pas à vous inscrire. Bon bah c'était bien, hein. Ça va, ils ont pas trop blablaté, ils ont bien montré plein de trucs. Oh, il y avait vraiment beaucoup de trucs par contre.
Ouais.
C'était épuisant de traduire en direct. Mais c'est un bon exercice quand même. Vous en avez pensé quoi? Vous avez bien aimé?
Ouais, dans l'ensemble, ouais.
C'est pas mal.
Ouais, bien. Un peu long, je trouve, quand même, parce que...
Ouais.
C'était 2 heures, hein, c'est ça, je crois. Hein. Ouais.
Bah, en fait, ils nous...
Wow.
Ils n'ont pas montré tant de choses qu'on connaissait pas du tout, quoi. Mais...
Il y a des précisions,
ouais,
des
voilà,
trucs.
c'est ça.
Il y a eu des... Tu vois, des... Ouais.
C'était beaucoup de précisions, et aussi c'était cool d'avoir des images sur des choses qui nous avaient dit un peu comme ça, mais là il y a vraiment le visuel qui va avec, quoi. Donc ça c'était pas mal du tout. Mais est-ce qu'on a vraiment eu des infos cruciales? Je suis pas sûr. Ils ont quand même parlé de ce qu'on parlait à un moment hier là. Ils ont dit que... ou je sais plus avec qui je disais ça, mais... ils ont dit que de toute façon c'est tellement grand que ça serait difficile pour même une grosse guilde d'empêcher tous les gens d'aller dans le deep désert. Donc a priori il y aura du fight, mais même une grosse guilde pourra pas tout contrôler, quoi. Après, au bout d'un moment il y aura forcément des alliances de guildes aussi. Et là c'est là que ça va être... Oui, voilà. C'est possible. Après, je pense qu'il y a un effet aussi de... Bah, si tu joues à 4h du matin, peut-être que tu seras plus tranquille que tu joues à 17h, quoi. Et donc, il y aura sûrement plein d'endroits où il n'y aura pas des mecs campés à t'attendre en embuscade à 4h du mat, quoi. Après, de toute façon, ça va être... Enfin, dans tous ces jeux PVP, là... c'est assez terrible des fois quand tu te fais rouler dessus, que t'es là, t'arrives, tu t'y attends pas, il y a des mecs qui t'embuscadent, mais en fait c'est aussi dans les deux sens. Quand c'est toi qui le fais, c'est marrant en vérité. Donc bah faut s'attendre à ce qu'il y a des moments où c'est sûr on va s'en prendre, il y a des moments où on le fera et ça sera drôle aussi. Tu peux pas, dans tous les cas, pour gagner, il va falloir perdre à des moments, donc voilà. Mais ça m'a... Franchement, là, ça donnait envie, le PVP Deep Desert, ils en avaient pas trop révélé, même s'ils avaient expliqué la manière générale dont ça marche. Ah ouais, le PVE récolte épices, et ouais, c'est vrai que c'est pas mal. Ouais. Après, il disait quand même qu'il y avait moyen de s'échapper, il y avait des mécaniques pour un peu sauvegarder le délire. Ouais. Je pense encore en plus, il va y avoir des guildes, des mecs qui vont être là juste pour griffe en fait. Ils vont arriver avec full ornithoptère juste missile, tu vois, et rafaler tout le monde quoi. Ouais, voilà, des alliances avec des mercenaires un peu quoi. C'est vrai que ça c'est pas mal. Mais c'est sûr que l'entraide, les alliances et tout, ça va être important. Je pense que tu peux faire les deux en même temps, mais tout opti, ouais, c'est compliqué. En plus. Bah, comme tu dis, ta guilde, elle sera pas tout le temps full connectée, tous les gens connectés, donc il y a forcément des moments où tu vas partir en expédition peut-être à 3 ou des fois à 20. Ouais. Ils ont dit quand même à un moment qu'ils avaient designé le truc quand même, ils avaient pensé le truc pour que les gens dans les guildes aient vraiment des rôles quoi. En mode le conducteur, le mec qui révèle la carte. Donc c'est pas mal quand même, parce qu'ils sont à la fois en mode, il faut un peu mélanger les trucs et tout pour être opti, mais quand même, au sein des guildes, dans les groupes et tout, c'est fait exprès pour que chacun ait sa place, quoi. Dans la bêta, c'était gratuit. En gros, tu peux le faire toutes les 48 heures et c'est gratos. Après, est-ce que ça sera payant au final? Sûrement. En vrai, sûrement. Dans beaucoup de jeux, ce qu'ils font, c'est que ça, plus t'as de points, plus ça te coûte. Parce que quand t'arrives à l'endgame, t'as plus d'argent de toute façon. Mais on verra. Ça serait bien que ça reste gratuit en vrai pour pouvoir aussi tu sais, changer en mode bon, bah là, dans les prochaines 48 heures, je vais faire que la défense et d'autres gens. Et du coup, bam, tu respectes en full de ce que tu veux faire. Tu penses? Ouais, peut-être un peu limité. Un peu limité, mais pas trop abusé, quoi. Parce que sinon. Je sais pas, parce que dans un sens, ça te permet de te dire ah ben là, je teste un peu ce rôle. Mais tu dois quand même faire des choix, quoi. Quand tu respectes. C'est vrai. J'espère, en fait, ce qu'il faudrait aussi, du coup, maintenant qu'on parle de ça, c'est qu'ils permettent aux gens dans l'hôtel des ventes de proposer un service autre que de juste vendre un objet, en fait. Et de dire ah ben voilà, moi je suis mercenaire, je te défends, ou j'en sais rien, tu vois. Mais ça va pas être présent, je pense pas. À mon avis, il l'aurait dit. Mais ça serait pas mal comme fonctionnalité. Ouais. Non mais après ça pourrait être juste un truc d'annonce quoi, tu vois. Des petites annonces, après les gens ils se... Ouais c'est vrai. Ouais c'est vrai. Après, le jeu est aussi basé sur un délire d'arnaque, de trahison et machin. Donc après, est-ce qu'il n'y a pas un coup à jouer comme ça juste sur la confiance quoi? Parce que, ok, tu peux t'arnaquer, mais dans un sens, est-ce que tu as envie d'arnaquer des grosses guildes pour continuer à faire des trucs avec eux, tu vois? Ah, le mec, il est connu comme le big arnaqueur, là. Ouais, c'est vrai. Après, ils ont dit que tu vois pas forcément les noms des gens. Oui, ouais. Bah, c'est des jeux qui ont des petites communes et du coup, tout le monde se connaît dans les... Je pense que ça sera vraiment pas mal le cas si on arrive à faire des trucs bien par langue. Mais si c'est vraiment full mélangé, ça va être plus compliqué. Bah, après, il peut y avoir une coopération parce que quand même les gens vont parler anglais, mais ça va être plus compliqué, c'est sûr. Et puis, tu peux être sûr que va y avoir aussi des gens qui vont garder leur secret, quoi. Ouais, entre pays. C'est vrai, mais bon, ça c'est pas mal. Ça fait une compétition dans la compétition. Ah, bah, je pense que dans tous les cas, on va être avec d'autres pays dans les serveurs, mais voilà, faut juste espérer que, bah, par exemple, le serveur qu'on choisit, il y ait une bonne partie de gens de francophones, quoi. Je pense qu'il y a déjà genre un quart du serveur qui parle français, c'est déjà pas mal. Ouais, tu vois, ça fait quand même pas mal de guildes. Le truc où je me disais, mais là, ils ont pas vraiment pensé au full truc, c'est qu'ils disaient, ah ouais, mais les guildes, elles sont limitées à 32, donc les gens, ils pourront jamais tout contrôler, mais je me disais quand même, c'est pas tant vrai que ça, parce qu'il y a plein de gens qui vont faire des guildes de 4 fois 32, donc, ouais, les streamers, ça va être terrible. Oui, il y a des guildes là, tu regardes leur Discord pour rejoindre, ils sont 1000 dans le truc. Il y a peut-être pas les 1000 qui vont rejoindre, mais bon. Je te dis, même 4, je suis sûr que ça. Il y a plein de gens qui le feront. Vu que maintenant on a plein d'outils externes, Discord, des machins, tu peux t'envoyer des MP dans tous les sens et tout. Ça va être le truc, la vraie difficulté, ça va être de se coordonner en live, d'avoir un lead et tout ça dans les combats. Mais je pense que pour organiser de manière plus générale une guilde de beaucoup de personnes, c'est pas si impossible. Voilà. Ouais. Bon, après, rang militaire est pas forcément égal à... Ils vont réussir, mais oui, il y en a, c'est sûr qu'il y en a qui vont être bien structurés et qui vont être forts, hein. Ouais, et alors c'est vrai que l'expérience avec tes mates, ça joue. Mais bon, comme c'est un nouveau jeu, il faudra quand même apprendre à voir qui fait quoi, qui est fort dans quel domaine et tout ça. Ça, même si tu jouais avec des mates avant, je sais pas, moi je jouais avec Panda depuis longtemps, bah on jouait à d'autres jeux, donc bon, on avait nos rôles, mais Ouais, mais je sais... En fait, ça dépend à quel point ils bannent les gens qui utilisent les exploits aussi. Ça dépend des jeux, hein. Ouais, mais ça dépend des jeux. Il y a des jeux où ils bannissent les gens. Bah bon, après, c'est sûr que ça sera pas forcément le cas. Mais ouais, mais ça... Ouais. Ouais, voilà, c'est ce que j'allais te dire. Ça, c'est inévitable. C'est comme les cheaters, en fait. Il y en aura dans tous les cas. Il faudra faire avec jusqu'à ce que les devs réagissent. Globalement. Mais en fait, je crois que les exploits, au final, c'est un problème au début. Quand c'est la course au loot, au stuff et machin. Mais il y a forcément un plafond de verre où on aura le meilleur stuff, on aura des véhicules, des machins, des trucs de backup, plein de ressources et tout. Et donc là, bah même s'il y a un mec qui exploite et qui gagne X millions, bon, si t'as tes trucs de déjà prêt, je sais pas à quel point ça impacte. Faut espérer que quand il y a des exploits comme ça, ils arrivent à retirer, qu'ils réagissent vite et qu'ils arrivent à enlever les bénéfices de ces exploits. Parce que c'est ça aussi le vrai truc. S'ils enlèvent juste le bug, mais qu'ils laissent les gens qui l'ont utilisé avec avec ce qu'ils ont gagné, ah, c'est aussi notre histoire. Mais bon, c'est sûr que ça sera utilisé. Dans tous les cas, j'espère. Bah, ils ont tout intérêt de toute façon. Mais dans tous les jeux compétitifs, dès qu'il y a une faille, dès qu'il y a un truc fort, voilà, les gens vont l'utiliser, c'est certain. Moi, je suis plutôt pour, en tout cas au début, voir comment les devs ils vont réagir et tout, et ne pas trop utiliser de bugs et de failles et de trucs. La méta, oui, t'es un peu obligé de l'utiliser, mais voilà, ce qui fait partie du jeu, quoi. Et si c'est vraiment des exploits qui cassent totalement le jeu, je suis pas trop pour les utiliser. Si tu vois, dans les jeux solo, j'utilise des exploits des fois. Mais parce que voilà, ça impacte que toi. Mais dans les jeux multi, c'est nul parce que ça impacte tout le monde, entre guillemets. Tu niques un peu l'expérience aussi des autres. Donc bon. En tout cas, bah, c'était cool, hein. Merci d'être venu discuter et tout. Moi, je vais devoir aller manger parce que là, ma mère, tout à l'heure, elle me parlait là. Bah, merci, vous aussi. J'espère que la traduction vous a plu. Je vais cut ça.